Today, ladies and gentlemen, is a very special day for me on Di-RRec Gaming. I have a very special guest today. A very special guest today. He's all the way out of China. Our time schedules is insane, but we made it happen just for you guys because the way we came across each other was on Twitter. Some of the things that he was talking about was very, very interesting to me. So I reached out to him, and lo and behold, we are here today. People, we are here today. This is the man of the hour. My man Daniel Camilo is glad to have you, man. Thank you so much for being a part of Direct Gaming today, brother.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, let's get to it. Let's talk about it. Yeah,
I love it.
thank you.
Let's go, people.
The following is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Once again, Daniel, thank you for being here tonight, man. In Texas, it's 9 o'clock here. What's your time there, man?
Right now it's 11 a.m. 10 past 11. Yeah,
Your day just gets started on a
yeah,
beautiful Sunday.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Sunday. Jeez.
Okay,
Yeah,
Daniel, before we get started, man, let the people know some of your details, some of your backgrounds, and what actually got you into gaming before we actually get deep into this stuff, man, and get to hear what you got to say from your side of view.
sure. Okay, so very quickly. Well, first of all, I guess I'm Portuguese, by the way. That's my nationality. I'm from Portugal originally. Um, I've been a gamer all my life. My first console was the NES when I was 2 years old. And I've been playing on consoles and PC all my life. For the last 20 years, mostly on consoles. Really, I kind of gave up on PC. I just too much of a headache for me. I just, but mostly on consoles. I've been living in China in Shenzhen for almost 13 years. Mostly working in tech, in marketing and PR. Not always related to gaming, but also worked in gaming for a publisher, and I write some stuff sometimes, and I do private consultancy for developers and publishers who are interested in the Chinese market to give them, to provide them some information and context. So that's basically what I've been doing and what I continue to do. And gaming is my life pretty much. I mean, if I'm not playing, I'm thinking or reading about gaming. So yeah, pretty much that.
Nice, man. Nice. Um, I don't want to hold nobody's uh thoughts on why we are actually here. We're not even going to play around tonight. I'm gonna let you guys know what drew me to Daniel. Um, as y'all know, we've been on Direct Gaming for several years, and it hasn't been that long ago, maybe about 2 years, when we started bringing up Tencent. And to us, Tencent, when you study who they are, and the influences that they bring to not just gaming, but a whole lot of things around the whole world, period, you start to think differently about Tencent because they don't really make themselves known. They're not the kind of company that puts themselves out there in the front and say, hey, here we are, guys. They just tend to, the way they operate is that they make things happen. They just make things happen. And the team over here, we were always like, what would happen if Tencent ever just decided to just get into this gaming space and compete real hard with all the rest of these companies? It's the way we looked at it, Daniel, is because, and feel free to chime in on
Hmm.
if you agree or disagree, but because I really want your perspective, right? So the way I've always been talking with is that as the years go by, right, the industry is getting more and more expensive. Tech is getting more and more expensive. So it's costing more for these video games to be made, right? And if it's costing more to be made, these budgets, these AAA games, all that stuff comes into effect, right? you have to have something out there that can pay for that. What we see is these free to play games or these service games that these kids or these adults as well, it's not just kids, but for the most part, games like Fortnite, games like Call of Duty, games like Roblox, games like Apex Legends, games like Minecraft, Madden, and NBA 2K, they always are in the top 10. Always. It's not these exclusives. You might get a game that comes out that's hot right now. Like right now on Xbox, for instance, Stalker 2 is in the top 10. Well, that's because it came out. It just came out as new. But we know that it being a single player game, we know eventually its days on the top 10 are going to go away. We know this because that's just the way the nature of the beast is. But, Daniel, these service games or free to play games or multiplayer games, for example, they live on because they are able to keep a community, keep engagement. They keep getting these updates. They keep bringing in new things for these gamers to never get bored about. They keep the friendships going, and so people, they don't want to leave. They have no reason to feel like they need to leave. Now they might jump off these games for a minute, buy a new game or play a new game through way of a service and take a break, but eventually it comes back. The numbers show it. It just comes back. So my thing is, and tell me, just feel free. But the way I've always said it was, as the future keeps coming, and we know that these games are costing more and more and more. Games like Minecraft, a game like Roblox, a game like uh, 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 Apex Legends, a game like Fortnite, Call of Duty. These are Candy Crush, Animal Kingdom. You get where I'm going. You can look at those games and say, yeah, but those games they're not graphically inclined, and those games are all pretty and beautiful, but they're not. But they serve a purpose with income. The income that comes in for those games provides you with those other type games that can express the technology of the era, that can show you the difference of the consoles, which console can do what and which console can do what. But without the income, these games are very, very expensive. The industry, makes it hard to make those type of games if you don't have that kind of income. I just want to know if you agree or disagree on that. Elaborate. Feel free.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, we can just look at even with Microsoft to deal with Activision Blizzard. I mean, one of the most important pieces of that was what's the company's name? King, right? That they make Candy Crush or whatever. I mean, yeah, everybody focuses on Call of Duty and Activision and whatever, but actually that's arguably like the best part of the deal for Microsoft was that portion with the mobile games and stuff. I mean, we know that. Of course, we know the data. I mean, a lot of these like free to play kind of live service games on mobile, like they completely dwarf in terms of revenue and profit. They completely dwarf almost everything that comes out on consoles and PC, and they do it usually very quickly. So I mean, just to name an obvious example like Genshin Impact or whatever. I mean, these are games that literally make billions, and while at the same time we as in like the core gamers and whatever and the gaming media spend most of our times talking about so-called big games that end up selling anywhere between 1 to 10 million copies if they're lucky, or some games make more, 15 or 20 million copies, but that's really an exception. While these free-to-play games, they make a lot more money. Of course, not all of them, but enough of them. They make a lot more money than those console AAA games and PC games. So yeah, I think that's something also I try to highlight when I talk about with different people and on Twitter as well, is remind people that when people talk about the industry, they tend to leave mobile out and free to play games out, but that's actually, like, if it's not the biggest pie, it's at least a big chunk of the pie of the gaming market. So if you're talking about the industry, the gaming industry, you have account for that, because like you say, like a lot of these companies, like again, like Microsoft and even well, we're talking about Tencent and others, like the mobile parts really helps keep everything glued together. It's like the glue between all the bricks that keeps everything, the money coming, and that allows then other more like premium games for consoles and PC to fail or to succeed, and the studios can keep going because they have that generator of profit. So yeah, in that regard, I agree with you. And Tencent, of course, I mean Tencent, if we're talking about that, Tencent is I mean, I don't know really where to begin with Tencent because it's such a big company. There's so much to talk about it. So I'll just you go on if you have specific questions. Go ahead. Oh, I cannot hear you. I think you're muted. I'm not sure.
No. I was saying,
Oh, okay, good.
oh, no, feel free. No, I was muted for a minute. No, feel free because talk is as long as you want, man. I know I
Okay.
can a lot from you. We all can, but just because of your perspective. The thing is with me is that there's a lot of people out here on our side where we're from that do not get this kind of seriousness from people within or then know things within the gaming industry. As me and you talked previously, we come from a generation where we read the magazines.
Mm-hmm.
To no horseplay in the magazines. So we don't have a lot of horseplay in us. We're a different generational gamer. We're a different generational gamer. But today's generational gamers, they don't. I feel like they're fine. I don't mind them. They're cool, right? They're just like we were. We're the Pac-Man generation. They're the Fortnite generation. There's nothing different. They're having fun. They're wilding out. They're playing on their tablets, phones. They're playing on more devices and more ways to game than we could ever imagine. I wish we had Game Pass when I was a kid. You killing us, right? We would have lost our minds. But the one thing that I've always not understood with the gaming media over here on our side of things, there's too much horse playing with the media. It's too much lollygagging. There's not enough seriousness. I feel like if you have some kind of input in the industry, you don't have to be all the way up in there, right? But just you see more. You go further than just the gamer. You write these articles for a reason. Let your articles be educational. Let your articles be something that really makes us go, wow, I understand the clickbait. Don't get me wrong, everybody's got to pay their bills. Every now and then a clickbait article is acceptable, but we get clickbait articles all the time, Daniel. We don't have a way. You're like, man, when you do find one serious article, you don't know what to think. You're going bananas because you actually enjoy the read of it, right? So with you, on the other hand, that kind of the culture over there in China, when they think about gaming, it's really serious over there. It's more respected. It's not something that's just, oh, it's gaming and let's be silly about it. You can see it. I mean, there's a lot of respect for gaming. And so even because when I saw you, what got me with you on Twitter was your approach on what you had to say. And I was sitting here like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? who? Because this is what we need. We need that kind of talk from people. Because it's interesting. It's interesting when you can get people to talk about things that most people don't even know anything about. So before we get to this Tencent thing, right? Because I can't wait to hear what you got to say about that. I know me and Realist, we've had phone conversations about Tencent and just how Tencent can really influence without. I mean, a lot of people don't realize if Tencent comes out to play, there's going to be some changes. I mean, just bottom line. Tencent, for one, Tencent don't play games. They don't. They're not here to play around. It's business. They have so many studios, so many employees, so many developers. It's to me, it's like I think the industry. I think it's good that they're showing up because it's been stale out here. People are the industry needs to be shaken up. Tencent developers are very creative, very passionate. There's no gimmicks. Shouts to the chat. Y'all know how we do. I hope everybody here enjoys this show because my man Daniel's about to cook, y'all. Welcome, realist, to the show, man. I felt, I had to have you up in here, bro, because I wouldn't know half the stuff about Tencent if it wasn't for you. So I had to have realist in here. It wouldn't have felt right. So I'm glad we're in here now. We're finally in here. Daniel, if you actually have your tweet, if you can find your tweet and read from your tweet, it'd be beautiful. Or if you can repeat what you said in your tweet today, because you probably can, break down and let everybody know about Tencent. Let people know about their capabilities. Let people know just how much influence they are around the world. They go further than just gaming. I don't think people really understand that if Tencent literally gets up in this gaming spot, you're gonna see some problems. And the only ones that can stand around in this field to play are the King Kongs and the Godzillas. And we already know those type of companies. These little bank companies, they're just not going to be able to compete. So, I mean, I just want to hear what you have to say. Let them know the seriousness about Tencent. Let us know the side on what you see from over there in China, how you perceive things, and how the industry can actually grow from having a decent, competitive, passionate insight on what to do and how to obtain these gamers and keep them excited from a Tencent point of view.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just say, I totally, before what you were saying about the gaming media and all that, I pretty much agree with everything you were saying. And I do feel personally also very frustrated because, like you said, I also grew up reading magazines. And nowadays you just feel when going through gaming media, and I go mostly English speaking media, but also from other languages. But you do see a lot of like immaturity and lack of, I guess, historical references from the writers, from the so-called journalists and whatever. I'm generalizing, of course. There's a lot of good people doing good work, but you do feel sometimes, I mean, very often when you read articles about gaming, like you can tell like, oh, this person like doesn't know anything about gaming from like anything that happened 10 years before from now, like and it's very painfully obvious. So it just, yeah, like you said, you cannot get much insight or much deep information if you're like a young teenager or whatever. I guess everything is new, you're always constantly learning. But if you're someone who's like over 30 or and has been playing for a while, you don't get much from gaming media nowadays, unfortunately. I mean, for people like us, like core gamers and stuff. So that's really very frustrating, and I totally agree with that. Okay, about Tencent. I mean, Tencent, it's okay. This is all just my opinion, and just just as a disclaimer, a lot of what I say are like generalizations. So bear with me with that. Tencent is kind of like unknown, I would say, internationally. I mean, among most gamers, people heard about Tencent and stuff. But I don't think people understand really the scale of Tencent. First of all, Tencent is not just about gaming. And in China in particular, Tencent is known for many things. I would say gaming is probably like the number 3 or 4 or 5th element that people know Tencent for. The first one, what really made Tencent what it is today, is WeChat, like the app, the social communications payments. it's like the main app that everybody uses in China for everything, pretty much. It's really hard to explain because there's no equivalent anywhere else in the world. There's no other app like WeChat. You can even play on WeChat. You can use it, for as a messenger. Again, for paying stuff, for buying stuff, almost anything you can think of, to transfer money, whatever. And Tencent, they created that app and they own that, and I mean, they're huge. They're everywhere. Of course, I live very close to their HQ here in Shenzhen. I can actually see from my window the tip of their building. Um, but yeah, so there's that aspect to it. So even if gaming would totally disappear from what Tencent does, they would still be a huge corporation, just because of how many users they have using WeChat and all their services and all their ecosystem here in China. More than 1 billion people use WeChat and all that. But in terms of gaming in particular, yeah, I mean, we know what they've been doing. They've been acquiring and investing in tons of studios and publishers around the world for the last 10, 15 years, really. I mean, they own Riot, right? Like, that's probably their most famous studio, Riot Games. They 100% own it, which is something also that people sometimes either don't know or forget. But yeah, like even though Riot Games, people tend to look at Riot like this, like this own brand, its own entity. But at the end of the day, it's 100% Tencent. Even if the high managers or whoever at Riot, they might be Americans or Europeans or Africans or whatever, or Asians. It's still, at the end of the day, it's still Tencent who calls the shots if they want to. And I do believe that the Riot Games cases gives us a lot of perspective and information, because Tencent does allow, I suppose, I don't know because I'm not there internally, but does allow a lot of its studios to operate in an almost independent way, and creatively, and from the management standpoint as well, as long as they keep providing good results. So we see that from Riot, but also from many other studios like Timmy Studios, which make the Call of Duty Mobile and a few other things. So yeah, I mean, but if you're going back to my tweet, what I was saying specifically on that tweet, I'm not gonna read it verbatim, phrase by
There you go.
phrase.
Yeah, fine.
But just what my point with that tweet was, just that, yeah, you don't see Tencent. So let me go on a tangent. Like in China, I think you have two big major gaming companies that are more well known internationally, which are Tencent, and on the other hand, you have NetEase. And NetEase is, like, if I'm not mistaken, like the fifth biggest gaming company in the world right now. So it's another huge corporation, but NetEase is much more gaming centric than Tencent. NetEase is really, most the core business is gaming. While again, Tencent, gaming is super important, but it's not the only thing. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so but NetEase, you see their branding, you see when they announce, even like right now, like you have Marvel Rivals coming up. They're working with the Star Wars IP and Harry Potter and some other stuff being live now. It's kind of hard to come to my mind, but but yeah.
Daniel,
But
real
then
quick, I wanted to say this, Daniel,
go ahead.
while you're saying that. So you guys hear him. It's not like the game industry isn't fooling with China and what they're able to do. They're fooling with China. I just want to make that clear. These devs are getting grabbed at. They're getting calls. They're getting hollered at. Hey, these guys are moving with games. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Tencent, they have studios since you're there in the US, they have studios all over there. I mean, all over, maybe it's an exaggeration, but whatever. They do have a lot of offices and studios in the country and in many other countries as well. But yeah, but what I was saying is that, again, you see the branding from NetEase in their games, but Tencent really kind of, I use that expression, like they have this kind of stealth publishing strategy where they upfront their studios, their many studios, and they call them subsidiaries. which I think is a euphemism. Really, that word I think is kind of weird because they really like their studios, and I think by using the word subsidiaries or whatever, that people then
Yeah,
say it
they
over and
understand.
over
Yeah,
again. It
right.
just creates another layer, as if those companies are not really Tencent, or
Together. Yeah, yeah.
they're just associated with Tencent. But no, they're Tencent. They're one
Yeah,
hundred
they're there.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like you have the studios from Tencent, was it Aurora, the studio group, Lightspeed Studios, Next Studios, which is here also in Shenzhen, and or was it? Well, I actually interviewed for them a long time ago. Full disclosure. So all these studios, Timmy Studio as well that I just mentioned, and a few others. When they release games, they brand it and they market like as if those games are from that studios, and that's it. Of course, if you check the game's credits or something like that, I think you will find mention of Tencent. I actually never checked, but I suppose you do. But again, it's not Tencent announcing these games. It's not Tencent. You don't see like the Tencent logo popping up whenever
Right.
you hear about this. And again, Riot Games. Again, Riot Games is 100% owned by Tencent. You don't see Tencent anywhere on Valorant or whatever, right? I mean, again, maybe you see on the game's credits. I'm not sure. But like if you go to Riot Games, their offices or whatever, you don't see like there's nobody there with a tagline saying "I work for Tencent" or whatever, even though they do technically. So that's the point, and there's many reasons why Tencent does this. I think one of the reasons, one of the main reasons, is simply perception, and they understand that there's still they understand first of all they understand there's still some stigma, I guess, associated with China and Chinese companies in particular from many people in the West, generally speaking. They perfectly understand that, and that's something that most businesses in China understand that do business internationally. So they try, even though the reputation of Chinese gaming has been going up a lot in these recent few years, but for most people, it's still, if you ask some random person or even some random gamer, I think you'll still get a lot of like negative and preconceived ideas about what the Chinese company is and what they can do and what they cannot do. So, and Tencent, they're smart. They understand this. So they create all these sub brands, all these studios. They make investments so that they have really like their hands in so many fields and so much stuff, while at the same time not being like the main visible point of the business and of those games and of those operations. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. That's how Tencent operates. And yeah, they have a huge influence among even on media. Like they had that gaming, I forgot the name now, if you remember. They had that gaming website, media in English, Fanbyte or whatever. I cannot remember right now, but there were some like famous journalists I'm sorry, like American journalists working for that outlet, and then it shut down just a few months ago, or maybe a year ago or something like that. um so yeah, they're involved in so much stuff, and you know, like you say, they have the power to move things and to influence things. And but I mean, I don't really know where to go from this, because there's just so much we can address just from the Chinese perspective inside of China, because again, China is such a big company. They're also constantly under scrutiny from China itself, from the Chinese government. At the same time, they are also a tool from the Chinese government in a way. In a tool, I don't mean to sound too negative, but in a way that they are like one of the major pillars of soft power for China now, because gaming, I mean, more than movies or anything, or more than music, obviously, gaming is really like the main source power, I guess, for China internationally. I mean, to spread like cultural influence, just like the US
Right.
do
That's
with
right.
movies and stuff.
Look what they did with
Uh,
Wukong. Look what they did with Wukong.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And that's just the beginning. Yeah, that's really just the beginning. I mean, right now, what you have from China that people consume internationally, obviously, you have almost everything. But just in terms of branding, like it's like gadgets like smartphones or whatever. You have like drones, right, from DJI. You have gaming. You have EVs. You have cars now. Electric cars are starting to export around the world. So those will really be the main sources of soft power from China. And from the entertainment side, you have gaming, more than movies. Like nowadays, unfortunately, I mean, we all grew up, at least I did, with Bruce Lee and whatever. But nowadays, you don't really have that from China. You had that also. It was because of mostly Hong Kong at the time, and even with Jackie Chan and stuff. But nowadays, you don't really have like Chinese movies that are making an impact globally. You just don't have, and there's many reasons for that. But that's another topic. And music, even less. You don't have Chinese music being exported internationally like you have like Korean music, like you have like K-pop and stuff. And that's also not going to happen, I think, just again for many reasons. But gaming is breaking through, and companies like Tencent, they understand that, and the Chinese government understands that, and they see that, and they see that as a positive. And when you were saying that gaming is serious in China, yeah, when you're saying that did strike as very true, in the sense that in China you can have a conversation about gaming almost with anyone, because really, literally, and this is not an exaggeration, I would say way more than 90% of the population plays games, even if it's only on their mobile, on their phone. Like everybody's online, everybody, like elderly people to small children. I cannot find a person here who doesn't, to some capacity, play games.
Hey,
And more
Danny.
than, yeah,
Hey,
go ahead.
Danny. Over here, we like to make fun of our elderly that play games. We like to make fun of them. You see how different the cultures are? You see how different it is? Because we know that gaming is for everybody. We know it's cool to see an older me. It's cool seeing an older gamer. I think it's cool, but we have a lot of immaturity over here in the United States. Gamers here tend to make fun of older people that are still gamers or still play games and things like that. But it's good to hear that it's not everybody, but it's good to hear that older people are still out here playing games and enjoying it, because game is just fun, right? Gaming is just fun. And it's for
Yeah.
everybody. Everybody, there should be no age limit. You can get on that handheld or controller or mouse and keyboard or wherever you like to do, right? And you can still have fun on it. Go have fun on it. I'm going over grandpa's house and grandpa's still playing Halo. Let them play Halo. To me, that's fun. To me, that's funny to see. It's enjoyable to see people have some light in gaming, because gaming just touches everybody. It can touch anybody. We've seen it with children who are sick in hospitals. Gaming is there. It's just, it's a way to escape. It's always been a way to escape. That's why I said I think that we have, and I say we, I'm included, all of us, right? It's all of us, that we have infected so many people because we're just consumers. And listen, you're here, so I can say this stuff. When I look at where gaming is at now, and over here, we no longer have our E3. I don't even have PAX South anymore. Me and Realist don't have PAX South anymore. PAX South was in Texas. It's gone. There's a lot of things that have left the esports stadium that everybody crowned back in the day. A lot of the stuff is gone. The magazines are gone. A lot of things that mattered are just gone. We don't have that access to just go and meet devs. And here's my thing, Dan. Sometimes it feels like I don't even think that the industry understands the importance of it. I went to a Halo Outpost. It was a thing Microsoft did only in 5 places in America. One was in Houston. I went to it. Daniel, I've never experienced anything like that. You met so many fans, so many gamers of Halo. It was ridiculous. They even had a place where you battled against PC versus console on Halo. It was awesome. when we don't have a mixer no more. We don't have a mixer. So at that time, Mixer was there where they had things live, kind of like Twitch. It was kind of like Twitch, Dan, if you don't remember. If you don't, right. So Mixer was there. They were doing live shows there. You can meet, greet, talk to people. If you were into Comic-Con, you wanted to dress up, they had those type of people there. But it was the whole aspect of gaming, right, was there. And we've never had it again. And it was a sold out event. I mean, the people there were even optimistic, like, man, I think we're going to be able to do this again, because they were looking at this was like a trial and error thing. And if so many people show up, that they might keep continuing it, right? Well, I got word that just Saturday in Houston alone destroyed all their hopes of numbers, what they needed to reach. So in one day, they were able to accomplish their whole reason why they even put the thing out here, right? If you can't go to like the E3s, if you can't go to like the Summer Fests and things like that, we need those little local events. I don't care who it is, from Nintendo, Sony, to Microsoft, to Tencent, to whatever. We do have QuakeCon here. We still have that, which is good. You can still go there and meet some people on the lower end, which is always great. It doesn't matter, but it just gives you a chance to meet people who are just as passionate as we are as gamers, but their story never gets told because they're the one making the games. You know, the gamer and the developer, we literally go hand in hand. Our story is intertwined, because without one, nothing can get done. Without the other, nothing can get done. It takes both of us to make this great industry what it is. When we're downplaying the games before they even come out, when these articles are already saying silly stuff about the game that before it even comes out, that's not good. That you know, let the gamers be the final product, as it should be. Then when we express how it is as a whole, you know, then the media can come out and back us up and say, yeah, look, either this game was great, it was received well, or it wasn't. But to talk before a game has even done anything is just mind-boggling. And Daniel, we do this stuff all the time. It's just like we don't have avenues anymore. It's so bad now that you look at the Game Awards and you literally got a lot. The Game Awards literally don't even reflect. Literally, at this point, it doesn't even reflect what we do, Daniel. It doesn't even reflect what we do. We have gotten to that point. And you're in China, and you smirked when I said it. Now that says a lot, because now that says a lot. You know it's you know, we have our reasons. We say what we say, but overall, where gamers are at, that should be the topic of discussion. I don't care what it is. It's if we're gonna do this for real, we need to do this for real. We need to understand that from Fortnite to Minecraft, right? You're always gonna have this set of games right here. You're always gonna have this set of games. Okay, celebrate it. All right. Then move to the next category. You can't, just because those games, right, Daniel, they're always in the top 10, doesn't mean they can't be honored. If these games are constantly in the top 10, that's not bad. That's actually awesome. And when you get a game like Paul World to come in and can get in there and succeed, when it's already hard enough to get away from those type of games, you heard nothing about Paul World. Absolutely nothing. It's as if Paul World doesn't even exist. What are we doing out here? Do you know how hard it is to get into that space and actually blow up the way that did? That game blew up in that tight space. You hear nothing about it. You know, that baffles me. And it's got to be discouraging to the devs. It's got to be, because You got a product out here that's literally has millions and millions, I mean tens of millions of players on it. Tens of millions. And it's like it's not even here because we have a media that's biased. Well, it's I like Pokemon so much. Man, we didn't ask you what you like. We didn't ask you what your favorite game was. We want you to acknowledge that this game came in here and did something in this little space. It has been able to gravitate or engage a crowd that would have not even have been engaged if anything like this even popped up. To give people another road to walk on should always be praised out here. That's hard to do. Dan, as when I look at these Chinese games, right? And I'm just like, you don't see no half stepping. You see a seriousness of culture. You see beauty and elegance. They don't want to water down anything. When they make those games, they want you to respect those games. Those games speak out respect towards you, and you can't do nothing but receive it in that way. Either you're gonna respect this game whether you like it or not, because it's something that you're not experiencing on your side of things, and they know this. They look at all these games too. They see it, so they look at our games. They look at all these other games, and they want to do something different. I know it doesn't sound right. I get it when it's all political, but I gotta salute these Chinese developers for shaking up the industry, because it's about time that the industry got shaken. We've gotten to a place where we're stagnated. We don't even see. I know this for a fact that China does a game awards. It's good when we see Gamescom. It's good when we can go and see another side of the country, Cologne, Germany, and we see Gamescom. Let's see everybody. Wherever there's something, let's go there. We go to Tokyo. I get it. Well, let's keep pushing. Yeah. Why do we stop? Keep pushing. Make sure everybody gets seen so we can appreciate all types of games from all these developers around the world, even South Korea. Those developing teams. Let's get in there. Let's showcase them, because if the industry is really not healthy, then that means we got to do something different. That's all that means. That means however what we've been doing from this point on is not working anymore. People want to throw jabs. I get it at Microsoft for being more transparent and open up their games, possibly need to hit other platforms to draw more engagement. But we get it. You said something today. That's where it's at. The mobile market, the PC, the cloud. When you're focusing on Microsoft, you understand that's their vision. When you look at Sony, you see handheld, you see PC. For now, when you look at PC, storefronts. I don't think PC can actually get out of that. That's pretty much where PC is going to be, storefronts. But then you don't ever hear about mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. I pretty much agree with pretty much almost everything. I guess everything you just said. About mobile, that's something I argue a lot, and I've been for the last few years. Like when we look at the media, the media almost always completely ignores mobile and mobile games. And then when you call that out, usually the argument they use, they as in whoever, that people use is that, well, people play mobile games. They're not the kind of people who will consume gaming media or read about gaming media. And in my opinion, that remains to be proven, because I don't think we ever really started to reach out to those audiences, to the mobile gaming audience, which really is everybody nowadays. I mean, most core gamers, they play also on mobile phones. They play some free-to-play games. And a lot of these biggest free-to-play games nowadays, they're obviously they're cross-platform. like Genshin Impact, Fortnite, Apex Legends, whatever, like you name it. And this is also the strategy, by the way, and I wrote about that not too long ago. This is a strategy that we see for most of these high-profile Chinese games. I'm not talking about Black Myth Wukong, but like all these others, like recently, like Zero, Zenless, what's the
Phantom
name of
Blade
that?
Zero.
Well, that's the console one. No, I'm talking about the
Okay.
other one, like the ZZZ. Um, what's the name of it? Zenless something. Anyway, Zenless Zone Zero. Yeah. But also Genshin Impact, NTE, Wuthering Waves, which was also coming to PS5. My point is, all these games, what they have in common, besides being free to play, is that they are cross-platform. They are released on mobile, on PC, and then on consoles. Not all consoles all the time, but this is basically the strategy. So Chinese studios, generally speaking, they're not really looking at it from a perspective of, oh, we're gonna have this game on PlayStation, or we're gonna have this game on Xbox or on PC or mobile, or oh, this is a mobile game, therefore it's a lesser game. No, for them it's like, no, like look at Genshin Impact. Like this is a AAA game. Like they pour more money into that game than most games around the world, and it's available on everything, and that's it, and it's free to play. And that game, for me, I keep mentioning Genshin Impact because I'm not a player of that game. I don't particularly like it personally, but I do think it kind of changed everything because before Genshin Impact, you never had a free to play game that looked that good. And people can say it's kind of a shameless copy of Zelda Breath of the Wild or whatever, but it grew to become much more than that. And before that game, before Genshin Impact, when you looked at free to play games on mobile, you did mostly have like lesser games, but that game changed everything. Now it becomes harder for publishers to say, okay, pay us $70 for this open world game we developed, because gamers will look at that and they will say, wait a minute, I can play Genshin Impact or all these other Chinese
Listen up,
games
folks.
for free,
Listen up,
right?
folks.
Yeah, and then people are surprised that some games flop or whatever nowadays, and they try to find reasons why. And ultimately the reason I think, generally speaking, is the money, is people's people's willingness to pay for products. So once you educate consumers that they can have something good for free, it's very hard for them to go back. Again, we see that on with FPS games, and shooters in general. Again, Fortnite, Apex Legends, whatever, name some others that are free to play, and some game, like we just had Concord on the PlayStation that flopped, right? I mean, and people go around with all these theories. Why did the game flop? Was it because of the grifters, or was it because of the anti-woke people, or whatever, this and that, and they all this clickbait? And at the end of the day, it's like no, like that game was like a small shooter online game that you can find countless others alternatives that are free to play, and that game
That's
costs
it.
$40. That's it. Like,
This
why would
guy said
anyone?
it, man.
That's it.
Right
Yeah,
here on Di-RRec Gaming. That's it. That's the
but
reason
yeah,
Concord didn't make it. We've been,
exactly. Yeah,
Daniel, another thing that gets on my nerves out here is these so-called influencers that are, it's, I don't even want to say the word really. It's like, I'm trying to describe it. It's like having somebody who is starving and you tell them, it's like, it looks like they're like, hey, you say this and we'll give you something to eat just to make it through the day. And if you do what we say, we'll give you some more food for tomorrow, right? Because they're starving, they're hungry. It to me, it's not effective if you can't speak from the heart. If everything that you say is programmed, then it makes it not authentic at that point. At that point, it has no power. I don't care who it comes from. And here's the thing. How do I know? Okay, we've got all these YouTubers that have been out here. We have all these influencers that have been out here. You have all these gaming journalists that have been out here. You have all these gaming events that's been out here for years, Daniel, for years. but the industry is sick. The industry is unhealthy. Why is that? Because it's not authentic anymore. You can't tell a gamer nowadays who are playing on these games that have inspired to build themselves from the ground up, right? They're community driven. It doesn't matter if they're free to play. The free, Daniel, they think that because a game is free to play, that's the reason. That's not the reason. If that was the reason, look, you have games like there's an airplane game on Xbox right now. I just saw it.
Flight
Do
Simulator.
I think it's going to blow up and be the greatest airplane game ever? No. Just because it's free to play. No. The reason why Concord, they say, well, Concord was $40, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it should have been free. It wouldn't have mattered. The problem with Concord is you had characters that nobody could relate to. You had the woke community, so to speak, in it. That was just right off the top. You had a game that looked copycat of Overwatch. And so, and here's the point, Daniel. You're asking people to buy this game, this generic, that's how gamers look at it. You're asking me to buy this generic version of Overwatch when I'm already on Overwatch, like Daniel's saying. I'm already on Overwatch, which costs me nothing, right? Where there's millions of gamers over here, and you're telling me to leave Overwatch to come over here and shell out $40 to characters I don't even identify with. I don't understand them. I don't know what their concept is. Nobody's going to do that. When they put the beta out for that game, right? They did. They linked the beta to the pre-order. So the only way you could do the first beta, you had to pre-order the game. Okay, so you pre-ordered it. When we saw that there was only like a few hundred people, you knew then there was a problem. I'm not advocating on delays. I get it. But sometimes delays need to happen. If Concord had any daylight in it, I don't know, right? I don't know the total business side of things. I understand the investors. We can always throw that up. That's easy. But if there was any crack of daylight for Concord, they should have took it because, or Daniel, go to the community. Say, hey, let us know what you like and what you don't dislike about Concord. Now you're engaging with the gamer. You're engaging with the consumer. So I'll tell you what, we're going to do an open beta for everybody to come in. We'll reimburse. Look, we'll reimburse those who did the pre-order. We'll give you a reimbursement. Don't worry. We want to do an open beta before we start this game out. We want to know what you guys think. Now, if you can get gamers in there that like it, they'll start telling you what they don't like, what they do like, and as a community, they'll start to make that game what they want it to be. Because think about it, Daniel. If you don't make a game that satisfies the gamers, it's not going to work. Period. I don't care. Right. It goes back to that notion. You can make the most beautiful game in the world, right? But if it plays like dog mess, who cares? I'll give you another analogy. You can be the best barber in the world, but if you're jacking people's lines up, nobody's coming to you. You can blend and fade all you want to, but if you can't get that line right, nobody's coming to you. That's the same thing here. It's the same principle. And the funny part is you had people out here, Daniel, right? Top dog people. Well, everybody follows me type people. They couldn't even tell the truth. Instead of telling the truth, you're jarring back at fans or gamers, who in return are the ones who ultimately decide if these games succeed or not. But you're attacking them. And before you say something, I'm gonna conclude. The crazy part about this, Daniel, it was the PlayStation community that was saying, no, we don't like it. Look, I pick on the PlayStation community all the time. Don't get me wrong. We poke on them, we make fun of them, we do what we do, but it's not serious, all right? It's just passing the day along. But this was the one time they should have listened to the PlayStation fans, just like anybody else. They're still gamers. They still buy the PlayStation platform. They still go out to buy their games. So forget about what I'm saying, because I don't have one. There's millions of people like me that don't have. Instead of focusing on me, focus on the gamers that have a PlayStation who are sincerely saying, listen, we don't like this game. You know, and they didn't listen. Then you had the developer guy come out and call them names, Dan. Yeah. Dan, you can't make this up. So when he called them names, I said, well, that's it. The game dies, the game dies. I don't understand where this mindset of privilege comes from. You make a product. Your customer is your security. Your customer is your everything. If you make a product and you start talking smack to your customers, what do we expect out here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where this came from. I don't know why or when this happened exactly, but me coming from I don't want to get too much into these all culture wars or whatever, but I do think there's a real lack of sincerity from pundits and from people in general. I mean, in these kind of echo chambers that we live in on Twitter and online. I come from marketing. My background, I've been working in marketing for more than 12 years. And obviously, anyone who works in marketing or really any business that has an end consumer, one of the main rules is like the customer is king, right? The customer is always right. Like, it doesn't matter, even if the customer throws shit at your face,
right.
Like, you're still trying to sell something at them, right?
Right.
So I don't know what happened in gaming in the last like 5 to 10 years or something like that, where suddenly it became cool or it became accepted to antagonize the consumer. And I'm not saying that there are no bad. I'm not saying that there are no bad people, no bad consumers. I mean, I grew up on Merc, on IRC, on forums online and whatever, where on 4chan, where the worst people imaginable, you can find them there saying the grossest things possible. That's never going to change. Those people will always exist. Those people will always be toxic. You cannot change that.
Right.
No matter how much. And people who complain about that, they're just really feeding from that to create their own engagement. So that's another problem. But when I see developers and publishers explicitly and publicly attacking the fan base and being general, that's the problem. Is that if they name someone specifically for something that someone did or said, I get it. Okay, whatever. It's not good PR still, but I get it. But when you're like name calling, like the whole, like saying, like when you see articles from from websites like Kotaku or whatever, like attacking gamers and calling gamers this and that, like what are you talking about? But that's one thing when it's the media. When it's developers going on Twitter, and they always have the thing on their bio saying, this, my opinion does not reflect my company, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That's the most
yeah.
That's the most unprofessional thing anyone can have on their bio, I think, because if you work for a company and if you're talking about your work, 100% what you say reflects on your company. Like, that's such a juvenile mindset to think that you can just, like, if you're a director of a game or a studio and you go on Twitter and you start calling people this and that, and again, I'm not saying they're not right, but like, keep that on your private talks. Like, don't put that out there on the main square for people to see, because again, you're engaging with your customer. You don't shit on your customer, even if your customer is a shitty person. Like, they're still the ones buying your product, and at the end of the day, it's a product. It's about commerce. Gaming is art, of course, but it's also commerce. Like, you cannot do that. So I think in the last few years, it suddenly became this thing where some developers, and I suppose it's mostly younger the younger people, like that they got convinced somehow that this empowers them or this is a good thing. There's a lot of like virtue signaling, I suppose, in that regard. But also I think now the market and publishers and companies are learning that that's not a good thing. And you hear about it. You see on social media, you see when those kind of cases happen, when there's a lot of drama, but you never hear the follow-up. And actually a lot of people do lose jobs, and a lot of people do get demoted or even fired or whatever for basically, I'm talking from the dev side, so from the publishers, for coming out and speaking like that. And we don't hear about that. We don't hear about that for many reasons, because, well, first of all, because people,
It's not
then,
professional. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and people are ashamed, so they're not going to advertise that they got fired for
Right.
speaking shit about gamers, of course. And also gaming journalists are not going to follow up on that, because then they will say they will be feeding the toxic gamers if they cover that or whatever. But that's not what you do. If you work, if you're selling and you're developing a product, you don't attack your consumer base, no matter what. You just don't do that, and that kind of became the norm. Like, which is incredibly, it's shocking to me again, because back in the day, not to be too romantic about the old days, but again, back in the day when we read gaming magazines and whatever, you didn't have that. Like the journalists, gaming journalists, they were very neutral. Like they were very, like, if
That's
they
right.
had to call out the developer and they had to say, oh, this game is crap, don't buy it, they would just write that, and that's good
it.
journalism.
That's it.
Nowadays it's like they're afraid to speak. It's like,
Right.
oh, this game is bad, but don't say it's bad, otherwise you're gonna hurt the feelings of the developers. Like, what are you talking about? Like, people get paid, people are getting paid salaries. That's a job. Like, I have a job. When I working in companies and whatever, like, nobody's worried about my feelings, and I don't care that people worry about. What I care is that the company pays me at the end of the month. Like, what are you talking about? So this is
That's
very like
it.
this. There's this like very juvenile, like kind of high school mindset that kind of became the norm, and I don't get it. And I think a lot of, especially older gamers, and I mean, I'm not too old or too young, I'm 37, but whatever, but a lot of older gamers, they realize that and they think that, but people just don't even bother to talk anymore, because they're just kind of hopeless. Like, they don't care, they're just enjoying the games by themselves, and they're just leaving, because I think most people outgrow, they grow out of that mindset. So we kind of just have to wait. And you see that again. You see that from a lot of gaming journalists from media who write in a certain way, and then they either disappear completely from that, or they just grow out of it after a few
Right.
years. They just not talking like that, because they finally realize how cringy they were before. Um, and it's the same for devs. Like, again, I'm generalizing. Most people are excellent. Most people are very good at what they do and
Yeah, it's
whatever.
not the majority. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely not the majority.
exactly.
Right.
But when you see a company, like, if I work for, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but like, if I'm the
Oh no,
head,
man. Man,
if
come
I'm
on, man. You're here
if
to talk, man. No, keep talking, bro.
yeah, we can go on all day. I mean, but if I'm like the head of EA or Ubisoft or Activision, whatever, name
Danny,
any
real
big
quick, Danny,
company.
real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't want you to say that anymore, man. You are here as guests. We don't hear this stuff, okay? We don't hear this side, okay? So this is good stuff, man. Really,
Thank you.
honestly, this is good stuff. Because it's just what you said. You paint the picture. I mean, it's all 75%. There's not 100% of nothing. So don't feel like you're talking too much, man. Just you're here.
Thank you.
We're soaking you up, man. You're a guest,
Well,
brother. Make yourself at home.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Go
No, I
ahead.
mean, I can talk about gaming all day if nobody stops me. It's my passion.
It's all
but
right, man.
but yeah, like I was saying, like, again, like, if I was, and I'm not obviously, but if I was like the head of a big gaming company, name any, Capcom, Sega, Ubisoft, whatever, EA, and if I would see like people like either community managers or game directors or whoever, like talking on Twitter in particular, and attacking consumers, and even the language sometimes used. I mean, I don't curse too much. I'm okay with people cursing. I don't care. People talk whatever way they can in private. But again, when you are a professional and you're talking about your product and you're talking to the public, and then you're saying stuff like, like eat shit or telling people to fuck off or whatever. Like if I was a head of one of those companies and one of my employees was talking like that about my product and to my like you're out, like you're
Yeah.
fired. Like that's inexcusable. That literally gives me justified cause, contractually speaking, to go to HR and say, look, this person, they're misrepresenting our company.
Right.
Like we cannot have that. But somehow we got to this point where people who do act like that are praised by an influential minority of people. And I do think they're a minority, but they are influential. And they got praised for it, and that totally alienates consumers and gamers. And we've seen, like, especially I think in this last year, if we look at the best-selling games and if we look at the games that flopped, the market is very clear. The market always tells you the truth and what people really want and what they don't want.
Right.
And I hesitate to talk about these things, because when people talk about this kind of stuff like I'm talking now, there's always that perspective of I don't know, like even when we were talking about Concord or earlier, if there's always that perspective, like if you criticize a game for like Concord, or if you say that people reject a game like that, suddenly people will call you names, like they will say, oh, you're a right winger, you're a Nazi, you're this, you're that. And like just stop. Like that's child talk. That's like whatever. No, we're talking about market. We're talking about people spending their money. We're talking about what people want and what they don't want. It doesn't matter what you think. Like that's and we lost sight of that. We, as in that influential minority, because the general people did not lose sight of that. And the sales, we've seen sales, I mean, not just for Black Myth Wukong, but even stuff like Warhammer recently, which again got relatively low exposure from the media and sold tons.
Yeah.
Again, Paul World, like you mentioned, it sold like, I don't know, like 25-30 million copies. Like it's crazy. Like
How?
that
Right.
that's like that should be like that should have been the major case study of the year and of the decade, probably, in gaming. I don't know, I'm blanking here, but there's other examples throughout the year that were huge successes, and then you look at the flops and you clearly understand what people want and what they don't want. And again, if you look at the top rankings of most played games on mobile and on free-to-play games that are also on PC and consoles, a lot of them, again, you see like there's tens of millions of people playing those games, and there's not a bleep on mainstream gaming media about those games, almost. So there's this total disconnect between what people actually consume and engage with and what people talk about. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just being super. I'm going on digressing and being super vague. But yeah, this is what frustrates me, at least personally, because again, going back to the magazines and stuff, I feel like even though the magazines were very closed in a loop, like, and they were not up to date constantly like the internet.
Right.
In a way, I could, when I read magazines as a kid and as a teenager, and this might also be because I was a kid and I thought differently, but I did feel like they painted a fair enough representation of what the market was and what people like and what they don't like, and what people were engaging in. I feel like if back in the day, like, and I'm talking like late 90s or
Right.
early 2000s, if a free to play game was being played by 50 million people, like you have stuff like PUBG, which is still hugely successful, again, Genshin Impact, whatever, those magazines would have some kind of feature like monthly about those games, probably, or something like that. Like they would be talking about those games and about the communities. And nowadays you don't really see that. Like if you go to the, I don't want to say names, right, but like the main gaming websites, you don't really see that. And the assumption is always that those gamers, they don't read gaming media. Well, I don't believe that. At least if a game has 10 million like monthly users, I want to believe that at least a million, or even if it's
Right.
half a million, will be interested in reading about it.
Right.
And that's a lot of traffic.
It's
If
a
you can
lot.
get those
Yeah.
people, that's a lot of traffic. That's a lot of ad revenue if you get those people into your website or into your channel or
It's true.
whatever.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on. Like a lot of, like, this is also again, from my marketing perspective, I'm baffled by what some of the editors in chiefs of some outlets do and allow to happen, and how the direction that they take their outlets in. I understand like that they a lot of them had to go through creating guides for games and all that to get traffic. I get that, that's important, but then just the way they cover news and games, I don't know, there's just been such a huge alienation. Like people used to be so engaged with gaming media like 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And again, like say what you want about NeoGAF and other communities, but it was
They
a
were there.
thing.
They were there.
Yeah, yeah. Nowadays it's like I don't know. It's like you put olive oil into, or it's like you put vinegar into olive oil, and you just see like everything dispersing. Like and it's very unfortunate, but it's also a very good opportunity, I think, because if someone or some company would decide to be like, like fuck it, we're just gonna do things, we're just gonna write the news for what they are, we're just gonna acknowledge what people want.
Right.
I
We'll
think that could be
reflect
very
what's going on.
successful.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my rant. I don't know. That's
No, that's right.
yeah.
I just
All right, can y'all hear me?
go ahead, Willis.
All right, y'all forgive my carbon monoxide alarm. I need a battery. But anyway, so wanted to ask Daniel, when was the last time you heard anybody just casually in conversation on the internet anywhere says, I'm level such and such on Candy Crush or Toon Blast? Like, when was the last time you heard anybody like just in casual conversations talking about, mobile gaming outside of like Roblox and kids at school, but or Minecraft?
I do hear. I mean, I do have friends who play. I do have friends and people close to me who play mobile games, like again, like PUBG, and some other games that I can't even name because I am not really interested in them.
Hmm.
But you're right. But you're right. It's not something that comes up very, very often. Yeah. But again, I would say that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, because the reason why I ask is because mobile gaming culture is totally different than the culture that we have as gamers, right? We're all in the same age bracket. We came up, we had magazines. We would go to school talking about it. We would say Sega's better, Nintendo's better, and we would have conversation and dialogue revolving around our console and our games on console. Because as far as I can tell, the mobile culture is more everybody plays it. We all know that somebody's playing something on their phone, but nobody's talking about it. Kind of like solitaire and bomb. What's the name of the bomb game? Minesweeper. It's like everybody who had a Windows PC, we all knew that at some point in time we're playing solitaire or Minesweeper, but nobody was going around to talk about it. That's why I think that you don't see a whole lot of mobile media, because when it comes to like mobile gaming, everybody knows that somebody's playing something on mobile, but you don't see YouTube channels dedicated to it. You don't see anything dedicated to mobile gaming, but I don't think they need it. And I don't think that they will ever, try to look to create a mobile gaming monthly magazine, because those same gaming magazines are on their phone digitally. They're in the same app stores, and those people aren't interested. I think that a lot of mobile gamers, especially gamers that we wouldn't consider gamers, our grandmothers and mothers, aunts, they're playing the game because it's convenient. It's right there. That's why even some of your TVs have apps on them now. So like you, who's going to talk about whether they played it or not? Maybe they might tell a family member that I tried a game on my phone. I mean, on my TV. That's cool because there's Tetris on my TV, right? And I was like, okay, Tetris. And as a gamer, I thought that was cool. But there's not going to be a lot of conversation revolving around it, because when legal told me, you were coming on, you're in China, and you guys, you talked about Tencent. I don't know everything about Tencent, but I remember you mentioned NetEase, and this is an Xbox channel, and everybody here for the most part touched Call of Duty at some point. But if I'm not mistaken, isn't NetEase handling Call of Duty mobile?
No, it's Tencent. Team Studios from Tencent.
It's okay, because I knew it was one of those Chinese companies. Because I'm just trying to see where I fit in, because he was interviewing you. I mean, because I don't really have any questions per se. you know, as it pertains to Tencent. You know, my thing is, okay, I guess because I read your tweet. So are you in favor of the way they operate? Because you were like because I didn't know much about you until Legal told me the other day, and you said that they operate in a stealthy way. Are you in favor of the way that they operate, or are you understand the way that or the reasons why they do what they do?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm not in favor or against. I do think it's a smart way the way they operate,
Okay,
and
so that sounds like favor.
and they're successful by doing
Right.
that. But they're not. I don't think they're more like harmful to the industry than any other big gaming companies at the moment, at least. So yeah, my tweet, when I tweeted that, it was not like a criticism of Tencent, but it was also not, I was not like defending them or endorsing them or whatever. I was just saying something that I think is real, and maybe many people don't realize. And I think that happens a lot, especially from the Chinese gaming markets. There's a lot happening that people just don't realize. So that's kind of what I try to do as well on when everything that I write and that I do online when I talk about the Chinese market is try to just shed some light into some things, but not necessarily defending them or not. So yeah, so
Hmm.
that's, I'm just trying to be pragmatic. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because my thing is I'm always the guy that's defending Tencent, right? As Americans, like there's a Chinese stigma. Anything from China, when
Right.
everything that we
Yeah.
use is pretty much touched by
Right.
Chinese hands, right? And on top of that, all large companies have the same motives, and some of us trick ourselves into believing that companies we like that are large are not large and they're really underdogs. You know what I mean? And what I mean is like with this whole PlayStation v Xbox thing or Microsoft v Sony, right? They're both large companies. They both want to make as much money as much money as they can. My problem with a lot of consumers is they love small companies, right? Until they get big. But that's the goal of all companies when you start.
Right.
Nobody wants to be small forever. Everybody's looking to grow.
That's
Everybody's
right.
looking to capture some piece of the market, right? And then when these companies get big, then the consumers turn on them. But and then if they don't get big enough and a company approaches them about acquisition, they get mad at that too. So I don't think that the consumer knows how to be happy. You guys have spoken about so many things. So I'm going to try to condense, the things that I have to say, because I think I heard you say, Legal, that you're ready to wrap it up. But
No.
when it comes to
No. Go ahead,
Tencent,
talk.
Tencent has their tentacles in so many different things, right? And they don't need to own things, and that's what has kept them off the radar of a lot of countries forever, except their own recently, because Tencent was one of the next trillion companies, right? Before the Chinese government did, and so, like you said, I would say that that's probably their biggest thing because it handles its platform,
Your microphone,
Google
Reynolds.
Pay, all wrapped up.
You're losing connection, Reynolds. Yeah, he's having mic connection issues probably.
Yeah.
You're still botting a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you sound
Can
a
you hear
little
me
bit
now?
clearer. Go ahead and see if it'll finish up.
Well, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
I can
not.
hear you
I
just fine.
stopped. I kept telling you go ahead because I can hear you.
Oh, no problem. No, for the most part, realist, you're right. I mean, we discussed about that. We touched on that a little bit while you was away earlier in the beginning about how Tencent was, but like, I just think that we're not educated enough over here about Tencent. I just think that the stigma, like he was saying, the stigma, it runs rampant. But as you can see, the love for the games and the love for making games is what the gaming industry has in common. The motto "space doesn't space us" looks very relevant, right? Doesn't matter what continent you're in. Look at even Africa is getting involved now. Africa, they're getting gaming studios over there. You got people starting to develop games over there now, and it's going to be more and more studios coming out of all kind of countries. Like Daniel said, because the gaming market is the fastest growing. It's the most prevalent space right now. I mean, it's taking over movies and sports and whatever else you want to throw at it. Gaming has captivated the world, so to speak. So if something as fun as gaming, right, has captivated the world, there's reasons, there's elements as to why, right? It brings people together. It builds communities. What is it? You're able to communicate with somebody that you would have never ever been able to communicate with just on a standalone situation. You're able to sit back and enjoy the knowledgeable talks, just like today with me and Daniel. If it wasn't for this technology and what I mean is, all things aren't bad, right? When you can use things for the good, it has its rewards. Today has its reward, right? On a common day, we would have never met each other, Daniel, if it wasn't for social media. Yeah. Now we know social media can go crazy, but for this situation, it turns out for the better. It turns out for something good. We get a person who we probably would have never been able to talk to, that's over in another part of the world, with an aspect that we just don't really see all the time. We come and we're now able to ask you and talk to you about certain things. You're able to agree. The major thing that I take from this, Daniel, is that now I feel like not validated, because I already knew, because I always said this. I'm never wrong, even when I'm wrong, right? I'm right. And the reason why I said that was because I never came up here to abuse my platform. I never came up here to abuse when words come out of my mouth, right? When it comes to gaming. I looked at it like ESPN. You don't, like you said, there's a way of having some kind of dignity, right? So I'm not going to be up here in a suit and a tie. But guess what? At least my words can mean something. I'm not up here to be silly. I'm not up here to be, just deceiving, right? But if I'm wrong about something, it doesn't come from a dark place. It's coming from a place of sincerity. So then Daniel can say, well, look, Legal, that's not so. This is this and this and this and this. I stand corrected, right? And then we move on, because the intention is not to be deceptive about anything that we say over here. We're not here to just shoot the breeze, say a bunch of hoopla. We're trying to say things in a standpoint where we take a stand, and we're over here to say things in a way that we think makes sense about certain things. So for you to come in, and that's why I came in the way I did, and say, hey, feel free to elaborate if I'm saying something that you don't disagree with, because I want to know what you thought about what I've been saying all this time. So for you to agree, it only emphasized that when you come at something in a way where you're not trying to be deceptive, you're not trying to be silly about it, you're not trying to, mislead people, that made me feel good, because you're way over there and you can see it. You can see it, because it's not about where you're at in the world. It's just looking at what's going on and evaluating it. If you have any type of way of discernment, you can see it. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can see that there's problems in the industry. The bigger problems are not just, it's not the gamers not buying games, right? Because we buy them. The thing is, they're buying certain games. Now, just because gamers are buying certain games doesn't mean that no new kind of game that comes out that's not the certain type of game can sell, right? I think that a little bit has something to do with that. Developers are feeling like we can't make games outside of what the gamers like because they're not going to buy it. You're seeing more of the same thing. That could be true, but when Wukong comes out, when Power World comes out, Starfield comes out, when you see Forza Horizon 5 come out, I'm trying to think of the other ones that the numbers just went astronomical. When you see something like that happen, and you know it's not part of the norm, I'm with you, Daniel. That's when we need to reflect. Those type of games that are created by those developers need to be upheld, because how else are we going to get other developers to feel like, hey, if they can do it, we can do it? It's like we want developers also in this little hole, this little pot. We don't want them to come out of this pot because we as gamers, the gamers aren't going to support it. That's not true. Gamers just have a certain way. They like certain things, but if you can make a game to their liking, we'll buy it. We're going to tell you what we like about it. And a lot of it is not hard. If you can't figure it out, address it. We have, Daniel, we have social media. We're not using it. If you're that confused, come to social media. Go to YouTube. Talk to us through video. Go live. You'll be surprised, devs. You'll be surprised how many gamers will come in to engage. Because, Daniel, there's one thing about gamers. We love to talk about video games.
Yeah.
Yeah. If nothing else, we love to talk about video games. So to see a dev coming down to us to ask us, hey, we want to get feedback from you guys, I think that's a beautiful thing. Anytime you see stuff like that, because honestly, I don't think gamers want games to fail. We don't, right? We don't wish on developers' works to fail. Nobody does. We don't. But I will stand with my gamers that we're not going to just buy anything because we're gamers and we like games. You still got to make a good product, and like you said, it's okay for people to criticize when it's in a constructive way. We should never feel like we can't criticize in a constructive way. And I agree with you, Daniel, on that. It's like now they make it seem like you can't say anything. Like, if you say anything, you're a hater or you're a fanboy or you just didn't like the game. It's not that. Like, calm down. When you see that the numbers aren't being reflected, there's something wrong. Look, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. It's not that we want the game to fail. It's not that and every game is not a 10 out of 10. We went through that phase where every game's a 10 out of 10. We got to a point where things wasn't right, where things aren't realistic. So the joke's on us. You never see the industry critique itself, right? The same people coming out here being silly all the time get away with it. So if they're going to get away with it, Daniel, then it continues, right? If you don't have somebody, if we can't get fact checks, right? You got somebody out here just running it, and somebody can't come in and say, no, that's not true. This and this and this and this. You need that, because that'll start making people think twice about what they're going to say on social media if it's misleading, if it's not going to be right, I just think that overall, in a way, I can appreciate certain things that Tencent is doing. I can appreciate uh, what the Japanese devs are doing, what the American devs are doing, European, the African, just the developers all around the world, right? I can appreciate the ones who are really trying to shake things up and get this engine cranking back up again. So the ones that think that they can just make anything and because it's us, because we're EA, for example, the game is going to sell. Look at Star Wars. Look at Ubisoft. Ubisoft is struggling right now. Can you believe it?
Yeah, yeah.
Go
That's
ahead.
fascinating. No, totally. I mean, if you have told me like 10 years ago that Ubisoft would be releasing hardly any games and they're like desperate to be bought by some other company, like Ubisoft used to be that company that like almost every game was selling like at least 10 million copies. Like they had all these IPs like Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, then even Rainbow Siege, like whatever. I'm forgetting so many. And now like what are they doing? Like it's yeah, it's concerning. It's concerning and it's a shame. And in my opinion, sorry to go on a tangent,
No,
they
you
did
good, bro.
release Avatar last year, the Avatar game. And I don't know, this is just my opinion. I love that game. I think it's one of the best open world games that Ubisoft made. I finished it. I think a lot of people overlooked that game and didn't play it and made assumptions about it. I don't like Avatar, by the way, the movies. I think they suck, very honestly. I get bored watching Avatar, but that game is incredible. I mean, just compared to all other games that Ubisoft has been doing. But my point is, it didn't sell that well, and yeah, it was a shame. And then they had that Skull and Bones or whatever, which was in development for like 1 trillion years and cost I don't know how much money, and it was a huge flop basically, and it's still a huge flop. So anyway, but that's Ubisoft.
Yeah,
So
they're having issues, man.
yeah,
I never would have thought.
yeah,
This
yeah, it's interesting.
is a good question. This is a good look okay. We're gonna Daniel. We're gonna make it interesting before we get out of here. Okay. I know you're busy. But we can do this
I'm
all
not. I'm
day long.
not. I have time. It's Sunday. I
Okay,
have time.
cool. Look, I want to make things interesting because this is Di-RRec Gaming, right? I want to give the chat pack. I want to reflect some of the chat pack's questions. I'll start with Jagos first. I know you. Uh, which one would you rather see take over, Tencent or Microsoft? I know it sounds like a battle, but don't put it so much as far as a battle. Explain on who you would think could handle the industry the best. Let's put it like that.
Okay. Well, I would hope I would prefer that Sega takes over if I could
Okay.
choose,
Okay.
because I grew up with Sega. But anyway, I'm gonna get political if I'm gonna answer that question.
And we just talking about no. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to talk about this because this is very very layered. But okay, ultimately, Tencent is still a company in China, headquartered in China. So the Chinese government does have a lot of power over it. And a lot of people will like disagree with me, and they will say I'm a hater or whatever. But this is the reality, especially if you're a big corporation in China. You must toe the line at the end of the day, which is not to say that the government is like constantly involved or dictating what they do or what they don't do. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if like tomorrow the government decides that Tencent needs to do this or that, then they need to do this or that, and they have no recourse. They have no alternative. And that's also, by the way, that's also one of the main reasons why Tencent tries to diversify so much and invest all over the world, so that they are not so restrained to operate just within China. So that's a very important point in their investment and acquisition strategy. So if I had to choose to who would lead, Microsoft or Tencent, for all its faults, I mean, for all the faults of, I'm not American, so I'm sorry in advance, but for all of
Right.
the faults of American society and American politics or whatever, it's still more of a free market. It's still more of a free society, obviously, than China. Needless to say, People will say, there's a lot of like China chills that will say this and that and go against this, but ultimately, I'm a democratic person. I believe in democracy, even though I live in China. But I abide by Chinese laws and regulations. I live here. I am not complaining about how it
Right.
is. That's an internal issue for the people of China to deal with if they're not happy. That's not up to me. But me personally, I grew up in in a democratic society in Portugal, in a very free and open society, and I believe in that corporations should and can be independent and operate independently, of course within the restraints of the law of any country. So just based on that, if we had to let one company like lead or take over the gaming industry, I would prefer it to be Microsoft, just because of that. Not for any creative merits or anything like that.
Right.
I would say the same if you were saying Square Enix or Tencent. I would also choose Square Enix just because Japan is a democratic country. I'm sorry. If you'd say Ubisoft and Tencent, I would still say Ubisoft. Even like it doesn't matter. That I'm just saying from that perspective. So yeah, from that perspective, yes. But Tencent is an incredibly innovating company, and a lot of what they're doing in the just in the digital space, especially. I mean, they what they have been doing for the last 20 years, it has no comparison anywhere in the world. Again, I keep mentioning, and people who live in China keep trying to explain to the rest of the world like what WeChat is, and I think people really cannot understand it without being in China. People, even Elon Musk or whatever, he tries to say that it's like a super app. Even Elon Musk, I don't think he really understands the real scope of WeChat, because when he tries to speak about Twitter or X, whatever, that he tries to make it a super app and he was like inspired by WeChat.
Right.
Like, I think he's missing a big point there. Like, Twitter will never be like WeChat, because the one of the reasons why WeChat is what it is because it can operate without any competition in China, and it operates within like this like this intranet, like this echo chamber, basically, that is the Chinese market. So that's why you also don't see WeChat being very successful in any other market, basically. And even outside of China, mostly just Chinese people use WeChat outside of China. Um, so anyway, I'm going on a big tangent, but my point is that Tencent is really, really good at what they're doing. They're very innovative, and I'm super optimistic about what they've been doing with gaming in the future. And they're finding, I mean, even Black Myth Wukong, they had their money on that studio. Like, the guys who made the game, they were working on for Tencent before, and they got some investment from Tencent
Right.
for the developments. And Tencent invests in a lot of people that I mean, in a lot of things that we don't even know about. I mean, people will say, oh, it's a public company, everything is disclosed and whatever. Not really. Like, there's always a lot of things going on behind the scenes that the general public doesn't know, and even investors don't know. So I'm very optimistic about Tencent. I think it's a super cool company. What they're doing incredible things. And again, people, when they talk about Tencent, they always go, oh, but they only do, because I listen like that in other gaming podcasts and stuff. Like, Tencent only does mobile games or whatever, or this and that, or free to play games. And like, no, like, again, they're directly involved in the development of AAA games in many studios. Again, just remember Riot, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, literally the tip of the iceberg. They're doing a lot of things. They're not just like some cheap, like, they're like Google,
Right.
basically. If you want to compare Tencent to anyone, you need to compare them to Google, or Alphabet, or whatever they're called now. So yeah, but again, going back to the initial question, if I had to choose, I would choose a company that, I guess I would choose a company that is not from China, even if this can come back and back. What's the expression? This can come back to haunt me or whatever, if the wrong people are listening to this, being in China. But yeah, I would always choose a company that's from a free state, and a free market. And yeah, that's my bottom line, really, when it comes to that. Yeah.
I got another question for you, man. So when it comes to, because you made a good point when you was talking about the weight of the bank, the weight of the pocket, the weight of the billfold, right? You got your Googles, you got your Microsofts, you have your Amazons and your metaverses and your Samsungs or your IBMs, the big tech companies, right? Where do you think now we're going with Tencent? So this is a Tencent versus Sony situation now. For those, what do you think about those that think that Sony's in that same side of the world, same globe, eastern side of the world? As like I say, as things keep moving forward, and these games are getting more and more expensive, Tencent has a slew of games to where that's not even a problem for them. Whether it's single player, whether it's multiplayer, whether it's service game, whether it's free to play, Tencent has it all, right? Sony doesn't have it all. Sony doesn't have a stable multiplayer game. It's still looking for a service game. Right now, Helldivers 2 is the one that's pumping blood, but it's heavily guarded by the PC community. Now, don't get me wrong. We'll be realistic. Helldivers 2 came out with a bang, right? It had about 452,000 players on PC at one point on Steam. But when Sony wanted to require, it's all right, Realist, we got you, man. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I'm just glad you was able to be here, be a part of the show. For the most part, when Sony wanted those PC gamers in order to play that game, to have a PSN account, it pissed off a lot of Steam players, right? Immediately, they that's what I'm talking about, Danny. Here we go. They expressed their frustration. They were animated about it. They did not hide about it. Now, here you go, Daniel. You listen to your customer. You listen to the ones who basically decide the fate of this game or not. The responsibility is to make sure they're happy. I just don't get it either. So when I saw that Sony wasn't folding from that, that's true. Now that's true. That's true. That's the big reason as to why this number fell right there, because Helldivers was always a PC game. Now you have this community that's been on Helldivers, right? Helldivers 2 is coming. They're excited about playing this game they already know about, right, Daniel? And then you make them require the PSN. PSN network doesn't have a strong history of being great, right? It's had its severities. You can get your account hacked, the big hack of 2011. People haven't forgot about that stuff. They were voicing they were saying that type of stuff. So when they saw that Sony wasn't backing down, they left. It went from 450 some thousand to just 20 some thousand players now. Still there. It's not as big as it was, but it's still there. I guess my question to you is, I would always tell people that moving forward, these companies are going to need a certain type of service game, a certain type of multiplayer game, or some kind of game that's going to be able to walk them into the future, get them over this $350 million to $500 million budget, because I don't think people understand it's getting very expensive out here. Like you said, to a company like Tencent, Microsoft, Google, that's nothing to them. It's something, but it's no sweat. They don't panic over those numbers, right? They don't panic over those numbers. But when you think about PlayStation, they were just trying to, what was it? They're struggling with what is it? The Elden Ring studio.
Kadokawa.
There you go. And you see the news about it, and you see it today when it was like, it's looking like now they're not even on the same track now. It's because that company that you said, that name, they want somebody to buy everything. Sony just wants to buy that animation side. They want to just pull, like you said, a subsidiary of it and just buy that. Basically, have that animation, that anime stronghold. While that company says, no, 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 listen, if you want us, you got to buy all of us. We're not going to do this pull from here, pull from there, pull from there, pull from there. But then what gets me, Daniel, is this is what I'm talking about when it comes to our journalism. We get this news, but we don't get the news that Microsoft is trying to buy them as well. Nobody even you didn't hear it from no major gaming outlet over here at all that Microsoft is right there still to this day making a deal, making a bargain. Who knows what happens? Who knows what happened? But the fact to know that Microsoft is in that position is mind blowing. So I guess my question to you is, who would you think could go further? I just want to hear you say it. I already know the answer, but who would you think would go further in the gaming industry while these games are being more costly? You think that favors Tencent, or do you think that favors Sony?
I honestly, I think that the answer might not be that obvious. Of course, Tencent is a much bigger company, just money wise than Sony. It's a much bigger corporation than Sony. It's just a different scale of operations. But while Sony, yeah, I mean now we know that like PlayStation is basically, I mean I don't have the data, but PlayStation is like the main pillar of Sony, right? Like even more than the movie studios and whatever. I mean nobody's buying Walkmans or Discmans or even Sony TVs. Like when was the last time anyone bought a Sony TV or a stereo? You know, when I was a kid, like if you go to your rich neighbor's house, they would have like this big Sony sound system or whatever, right? I cannot remember last time I saw anyone with one of those. Like I don't even know if they're still doing that or not. Um, so it's gaming, it's PlayStation, right? But my point is PlayStation as a brand, it is huge. Like in gaming, PlayStation is kind of like I don't know, like it's kind of like the Michael Jordan in gaming, just in terms of branding. Like you know, like you have
Right.
nowadays you have PlayStation, you have Nintendo. Arguably, those are the two biggest recognizable, iconic names in gaming worldwide. If you ask anyone, obviously more than Xbox, more than Sega from the past, more than Atari, whatever.
Right.
So, and I think that carries a lot of weight in terms of what can be done potentially in the future. While Tencent it does have a lot of power and a lot of money, again, they're somewhat limited. They're somewhat limited by where they are, like just from being a Chinese company and everything. Like, and that's again going back to like that stealth publishing strategy. Like, if we don't know, but if in the future there's more like commercial wars or anything like that between, let's say, between the EU or the US, the American whatever administration it is, if they want to put more tariffs or bans on Tencent products or whatever, like they did for Huawei or something. So Tencent is always like in this kind of like delicate position where it's not like they depend on the rest of the world to exist, because they don't, because just the internal Chinese market is the scale is so huge, and that's really what made them as big as they are. But in terms of global expansion, it's still very uncertain. They're still very uncertain what they can and cannot effectively do. So I think there's no straightforward answer to that, to be honest with you. Like if you ask me, for example, what do I think if we go 50 years into the future, will the brand PlayStation or the brand, or at least Sony, still exist? I would bet that it does. It will still be exist in whatever way it might be. Also for Microsoft, will Tencent as a brand, as a gaming company, still be 50 years from now? I don't know. I would assume yes, but maybe they will be much less or much more involved in gaming or not, just because they might pivot a lot more than a company like Sony and a brand like PlayStation. So I don't know. I'm not trying to be dismissive or whatever, but I really do I really do think it's very complex. And again, especially because we're talking about China, and China really is by many reasons. Of course, politics, how things work. Needless to say, it is its own planet in a way, like quote unquote, very different from any other country. Because on one hand, it is like the biggest by some metrics, the biggest economy in the world by some metrics, even when compared to the U.S. It will, if unless some cataclysm happens, it will become the number one power in the world throughout this century. But on the other hand, it is a very isolated and isolationist and protection a country with a lot of protectionist laws and regulations within the country. So again, even though it's such a big country with so many people, so powerful, if you talk to people outside of China, they still don't know much about China, which is incredible. I mean, they might think they do, but not really. Like even the city where I live, which is the city of Shenzhen, is a city of almost 20 million people, which is one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. But most people in the world have no idea what this city even looks like. But if it's actually, if you Google it or whatever, like it's literally like the most modern city in the world. I'm not exaggerating. It's the city with the most electric cars in the world, with some of the best infrastructure. And again, Tencent has their HQ here, and a lot of other companies. But again, that's my point. Like it's still a lot when you're talking about China and Chinese companies. Things can shift very quickly, and it's very uncertain what will happen in the future. Now, I'm optimistic, but I'm not delusional. I'm not naively optimistic. I just think that a lot can happen. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember what was the question exactly. But
no, you did it. You said it. Yeah, you good. Yeah, that's how I wanted it. I got another one for you. Okay. What do you prefer? Which you got to pick one of the two, all right? Which one do you prefer? Cloud, mobile for gaming, or VR for gaming?
Oof.
What are you a fan of?
I'm not a fan of either. I mean,
that's good.
No, I mean, I like VR. No, I try. I have the PSVR, the first one. I never bought the second one, and I guess I probably never will, because they're not really supporting it much. I don't have any VR for PC, but I do like VR in terms of a very short experience. Like if you experience for a few minutes or whatever, it's cool. But it's not something that would ever replace my traditional gaming experience with consoles, sitting on the couch and being on it. It's just, I cannot use VR, and I think most people are like that for more than literally like 15, even 15 minutes is perhaps already too much. You just feel, just all your instinctive alerts kind of start to flare up. Like you don't feel safe when you cannot see what's around you, whatever. Like it's claustrophobic. I don't know. Like I say, it's too distracting. It's ironic because you're supposed to be immersed.
Right.
You're supposed to be immersed in this little thing in your head. But at the same time, because of that, at least me, I end up being too distracted about what's around me and thinking about what might be happening around me, just because I'm not aware of it. So I think until VR solves that issue, it will not become like a massive adopted product. And AR and mixed AR and VR, that's kind of the solution, but I think we still have ways to go. So if I had to choose, I guess I would choose mobile and cloud, just because at least I can experience games normally, kind of normally, although I don't really play much mobile games. And I think that cloud in general, I mean, cloud streaming for games, it's kind of a solution in search of a problem. I still it still doesn't really work that well, at least not for all games. But yeah, it's all emerging technologies. So I think we're gonna see it changing a lot in the next 10, 15 years, 5 years. Things will happen in ways that we cannot imagine right now. In the same way that what we have now, in many ways, it was unimaginable even like just 10 years ago. So things move very fast. But to answer your question, if I had to choose, I guess I would go mobile and cloud, just because at least I could use it more. Yeah.
Daniel, do you believe in the mid-gen cycle refresh of consoles, or do you believe more in a traditional way of letting the developers catch up to the technology as the years go by with the product that's already out. Do you
I
think
think
it's necessary?
necessary, no. I do think it's frustrating that we before in past generations we would see like games at the end of their generation really pushing the limits of the hardware. That was something that we would read and see all the time, journalists saying like, oh, this
Right.
game really pushes the limits. And I don't think we're seeing that right now. Like I had, for example, I had like the Xbox, I had the PS4 Pro and the One X as well. I bought them even though I had the base models. But that's the kind of consumer I am. I'm an early adopter, so
Right.
I'm not representative of most people. Like I spend most of my money in gaming anyway. Even if I'm broke, I will still put a
Yeah.
lot of my money in gaming. But the One X, I thought it was amazing. I was using the One X a lot, but it was never really, its potential was never really used. There's no,
Right.
not a single game was developed just for that hardware that really
Right.
pushed that. And the One X is still in some ways at least as powerful, even more powerful in some ways than like the Series S, like in terms of
Yeah.
RAM and whatever. Not the CPU, but like or not the GPU, but in some ways it's still a very robust console. So if you ask me if it's necessary, no, I don't think the refreshes are necessary, and sales tells us that only like 10% of the user base or 15 or whatever it was of the PlayStation 4 was PS4 Pro. So it's a minority of people who buy that. Now, I don't think it's necessary, but do I kind of like it? Honestly, I do. I might get the PS5 Pro. I've actually been delaying to play some of the games I already have, like the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I have it already, but I didn't play it yet. And now I'm thinking I'm probably going to delay it and play it only once. And if I get the PS5
Yeah. If
Pro,
you
just
play
because
it
of
once,
the
right, you're not gonna play it twice. Yeah, I
yeah.
see what you mean. Yeah. But
So,
if you're
but
gonna play it now, you might as well play it on. If you get the pro,
exactly, yeah,
yeah, check
exactly,
it out on the pro. If you're gonna, yeah, I feel you.
yeah. But at the same time, I don't think it's a good precedent. I don't think it's a good model to for consoles to kind of become like smartphones, basically, like with so many updates, hardware updates. I don't think that's really great for the consumer ultimately, and also for just for the potential of the games. Because now again, the development of the games is very compromised. We already are in this generation for like
Yeah.
I don't know, already 3 or 4 years, and a lot of the games are still being released on PS4 and the other Xbox. And it's funny, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go on another tangent.
Oh man, go ahead.
At the
I
beginning
agree
of
because
the
I agree with you on this.
at the beginning of this generation, we you had some people saying like, games that are come out on PS4 and PS5 or Xbox One and Xbox Series. People were saying like, oh, those games are compromised, development's compromised. And if you would say, I remember that this because I even wrote some articles and stuff on LinkedIn and other places. If you would say this, people would come at you. They would say, you don't understand game development. That's not how it works.
Right.
Games can scale and blah 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 blah.
Right.
And now it's like the total opposite. Now the gaming media, whatever, they openly say it's you know that the games, yeah, it's holding back. Like the last generation is holding back development, and developers have been talking about that. And I don't know who it was, some studio was saying that very openly and explicitly. I can't remember who exactly now. So these mid generation refreshes kind of do that even worse in a way, because then you have these games like take the PS5 Pro and the PS5. Every game that's optimized for the PS5 Pro, there won't be ever any game developed for the PS5 Pro only that fully takes
Yeah.
advantage of that hardware.
Right.
Even if it had some whistle like the PSSR or VSSR, whatever, and more ray tracing, but fundamentally the games still need to run on the PS5, just like
Right.
Xbox games need to run on the S, which is really this really annoys me because the
Yep.
Xbox, the Series X is more powerful than the PS5. I mean,
Yep.
just in terms of hardware, but still we don't see any game that can really push for that because it needs to run on the S,
Right.
which is amazing that Hellblade 2 even exists the way it does, but still. Um, so yeah, it's both frustrating for me, this kind of mid-cycle things, because in that regard you don't see those games really pushing it like we would see like on the Mega Drive. I mean, on the Genesis there and on the SNES, like you'd see those games on the Mega Drive like in 95, even 96, they had these amazing graphics that you would never imagine were possible at the beginning of the Mega Drive life cycle. And the same even for the PlayStation or for the Saturn or whatever. Like those games like that you'd see like for the PlayStation like 2000 whatever, that really
Yeah.
push the limits of the graphics.
No, you're right.
Won't see that. You won't see that now. You won't.
Yeah.
And again, for the PS2, like when you had like God of War came out at the end of the PS2 cycle. And that looked incredible. I mean, it just, again, if you put that game back in 99, which is when the console hardware is from, that would have blown everybody's mind if God of War came out in 99. But it existed then in 2000 whatever 4 or something, because the devs were really, really comfortable with that hardware. Right. And they really pushed that. They did mad, and we've seen that with some games on the first Xbox as well, and obviously on the 360. We've seen that with all the consoles up until this last generation. Now you don't really see that. I think so.
No, you don't. You don't. You're right. You don't.
Yeah. So that's it.
I wanted to ask you just a few more questions before we get out of here, man. When you think about how development is going with these games, and you hear things like Microsoft saying that the next Xbox is going to be a generational leap, we always hearing. I know we're always hearing the hype for the next consoles. We get it. I understand that great marketing line and to get people hyped up, get ready to reach in their pockets and start spending, right? But what do you truly think the generational leap is going to be about? From your standpoint, to me, when I heard that, I'm looking at Microsoft. This is my hope for it. Me personally, I hope that the Xbox finally fulfills itself into what it's really meant to be, right? The console PC, being able to utilize the visions. What do you mean by that, legal? Well, we know the cloud is coming. We heard them early in this year in their interview, Matt Booty talking about the cloud saves and pretty much community gaming. Those are going to be the two things they focus on, which makes sense because when you're dealing with PC, everything's open. It's hard. You can't say on PC, well, we're going to do this and you guys need to do that, because there's so many variables in PC, right? Too many open doors. It's too broad. It's too customizable. If I'm making sense, you know what I mean? But when things on console are more caged in, can be more exclusive to what you are trying to push forth, right? So they realized that they hit a brick wall there. They shot, you shoot a vision, but you work towards a vision, but you have to accept when certain things aren't going to work. Microsoft realized there's going to be certain things in the visions that we put forth that's not going to work, but that doesn't mean we can't pull a little bit out of that and use it. So cloud saves, I think that's great. Goes back to the first Xbox. We didn't have memory cards, anything, because it was just a walking monster, right? Your games can be utilized in cloud. We see this now, but that got blocked, right, Daniel, because of this situation with Google right now. So you see Microsoft is getting to where we'll be able to play our games on cloud and move around with them, be mobile with them, go where you want to go, right? That's coming. That's there. It's just now we got a little stump. But if you paid attention to what Sarah Bond was saying, she wants to get it to where when it's fully grown, all your games that you've ever bought will be utilized in the cloud as well. So if you bought them, you can have them at your expense. You can go mobile or you can go home, whatever you want to do with the way you purchase your game, however you want to play your game, ensures to do what you want to do with it. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great vision. For me, I think the next Xbox should embody all of it. There's no more, I think 20 some years is fair enough, right, Dan? And we're not getting any younger. If get your console to be able to utilize itself, maximize your vision. That's what I look at the jump on top of the AI. Microsoft is going to need to push their AI. They're pushing theirs. There's going to be an AI war. We get it. We're going to see who can do what with their AI. NVIDIA is doing awesome work out here. NVIDIA has blown expectations out the door, right, on how they came in this year. Like I said, Daniel, 2024 has been an incredible year.
Oh yeah.
We don't. That's what I'm saying. So many things have been done this year that's remarkable that I don't know, man. It's just, we're talking about change, right? We talk about change. I think the media something needs to change in the media. There's just people. Think about it like this, Daniel. Some of us have cable still. Some of us have antennas still. Some of us have streaming. Some of us have our Fire Sticks or whatever your means of watching your TV, right? Think of a situation where you don't get your locals and things are happening around you and you're not aware of it. Breaking news style. I'm talking breaking news style. We all know how important breaking news is. So if there's breaking news popping off and you have no way of knowing breaking news, that's what I'm talking about. We don't have a breaking news situation as far as the media goes. So it seems like we all have a way of looking, right, and watching, but we're all watching outside of where we're at. So when there's things that are happening, I'm metaphoring what you was talking about earlier. When there's things that are happening in the community that present themselves in remarkable ways, we don't talk about it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's no emphasis on it because there's no local information. It's just, we're just getting stuff just to be seeing it, just to be talking, but it feels empty. Everything just feels empty. So for me, I just feel like if Microsoft can stick to what makes their vision clear, they're doing good with their marketing. PR, to me, Microsoft PR and the way they address their stuff still needs work. We know that. The way the presentations about things are just, I still don't understand why they struggle with that. I don't even know what that's all about, but if they can at least get half of that right, I feel like the next Xbox can do some good damage along with this handheld. Because honestly, Daniel, you can butt in and see and tell me if you agree with me or not. I do understand, and I don't fight this. I do understand the console space has reached this plateau. I'm a firm believer of that. 300 million max. Hey, good run every time. It just repeats itself. But if you can add some good handhelds into that to increase, get a person that wouldn't be attracted to the Xbox console or that wouldn't be attracted to the PlayStation console. Notice how I'm leaving Nintendo out of this because Nintendo figured it out, right? Yeah. They hybrid their bad boy and they're off. But as far as PlayStation, Nintendo, they have communities that don't desire one or the other, right? But if you're going to catch me, I have a wrong ally now, so I can play PlayStation games if I want to. I can get in there. I can use different kind of apps, shadows, all kinds of stuff. I go on Steam, whatever, right? So I have access. I got to get the web browsers and stuff. I got access. But for PlayStation, they want to get the Xbox people, right? Making a great handheld can do that because a person on Xbox may not want to buy a PlayStation console. But hey, there's some games over there that draw my attention for $2.99, $3.99. That's okay. That's cool. Let me get it, and I'll play just these certain type of games. That's all it takes. You have to subscribe, right? You still gotta pay for the top tier of PlayStation Plus, just like with us. It's no big deal. We have to pay for Game Pass Ultimate, to get these perks. So there's ways of expanding your base. I get it. These handhelds would be a great way of doing it. We know that Nintendo has always been successful with that, right? Their handhelds have always been successful.
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation has had 2 flops, but they've made a handheld before. They're not strangers to that. Microsoft is the only one that hasn't made one. So I think Microsoft has more to prove. You can agree or disagree, but I just feel like Microsoft has more to prove. This handheld needs to be flawless.
Mm-hmm.
You're Microsoft. This handheld needs to exemplify you. This should be one of their greatest things they've ever done. And I know it sounds corny, right? Because it's the handheld, but to me, Daniel, I feel like the handheld incorporates the cloud vision. To me, that handheld can market the cloud vision unlike anything else. Me and you're over there, I'm over here, and I could go somewhere. Hey, Daniel, you up? Yeah. Hey man, you want to get on? And I could be somewhere outside my house, and we connect real quick, get about 30 minutes of playtime, whatever we need to do, an hour, and then we get off. Now notice, I'm out there, you're over there, and you're at home, but I'm walking around, and people see me interacting with you. Now they question me. Man, what do you got there? Oh, I got the Xbox handheld. I'm playing with one of my friends from China. What? Yeah, we're playing this game. Now we're going back to what we talked about. That generation that's talking, that generation that's interacting out here in the real time, not on social media, but out here on the real time. And when that word starts getting out about a product, we already know what good things can happen at it. Word of mouth to a good product is like a wildfire, and it starts blowing up. The next thing you know, you have this new fan base. Because listen, let's keep it real. Xbox is last when it comes to that. When it comes to the outside market, gaining people to play on this platform, yes, it's last on that. So to have a mobile entity that can reach more people, I believe is the greatest way for Xbox right now. Then you have the console. Make that console interact with that PC unlike no other. You're going to have to do that because you don't want to disengage your PC community with your console community anymore. You want to bring them together. You're just going to have to bring them together. I don't care if that console has to be doing some powerful things. Get it to where it's at least a low-end, high-end. At least a low-end, high-end PC. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be unrealistic, right, Daniel? Oh, they need to make this powerful console. It's the 5090 in it, Oh, the latest technology and everything. But at least get this thing to where we're not going to have no issue bringing PC and Xbox together on anything that we do. You know what I'm saying? And then you amplify that AI technology because we know that's what it's going to be, that heavy machine learning and all these things that will blow our minds away now when we're playing these games. We're playing these open world games. We're able to interact in ways that we never dreamed before could happen in gaming. All this revolutionary stuff. It has to happen because, like you said, Daniel, this generation had a lot of talk, but there's nothing. We don't have nothing to show for it, really. Hellblade was one of the most beautiful games ever made. It is a graphical showcase, but it's in a league of its own. There's nothing. We don't really have a plethora of nothings like that, And it is sad. It is a little disappointing, but I'm rooting for Gears of War E-Day. I'm rooting for that 30th anniversary of Halo using Unreal Engine 5. Daniel, like I said, there's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope.
No, of course, of course. I mean, just okay. Just talking about that, about Xbox future plans. I've come to realize, or at least that this is where I think I like Phil Spencer, because he's like the face head of Microsoft's PR, pretty much. I don't take anything he says at face value, really, just because I've come to realize in this last few years that they're just planning things and strategizing as they go. They don't really have a long term plan, and that's very very frustrating, I think, for a consumer. I mean, we had the leaks last year, or maybe it was still this year, the leaks for Xbox, where they literally we could see all the PowerPoint presentations where they had that. I don't know if you remember, like cylinder shaped Xbox and that controller. They had like a special controller which literally said like the controller will be the console, which you can connect it using cloud to any device, to your computer, to your TV, whatever. And in a way, I thought that was brilliant. Like you have one controller that has like your gamer tag, like your profile, and you connect it to a TV, to a computer, whatever. And through clouds, you will be able to just log in and play your games. And I still think overall that's their vision. I think that's their general vision, and that's what will happen. But not specifically with that hardware, perhaps, and not specifically with that cylinder Xbox as well. So this is what I'm saying. Like it's like they keep changing. Now Phil Spencer saying, yeah, they probably. I don't know if he said probably. I'm paraphrasing, or if he said they're actually going to do the handheld, but he said it's years away.
Yeah.
So that basically that means nothing. I mean, that means nothing. He's an employee for the console. It can or cannot.
It ain't out yet. Right, exactly.
Yeah, it might actually happen. That means that maybe it will actually happen next year. No, it might actually happen next year, because maybe someone at Microsoft higher up will suddenly say, okay, let's put $1 billion into that and let's release it.
Because that's going to be the bottom line. Right.
Yeah, so it kind of means so that's the PR marketing, the problem that they have, I think, at Xbox, is that they're constantly reacting to things that they're never leading, which is unfortunate because Xbox, for all the bad things people can say about, and I'm console agnostic and whatever, but I did have all the consoles, and I did have all the generations of the Xbox. And the Xbox, people don't give it enough credit in how they innovated, like for online, obviously for online. Like you were saying before, the first Xbox, like you had the hard drive instead of the memory cards, like all those 8 gigabytes, which made a huge difference even for developers and everything. And even like the explosion of indie games on consoles, that really happened because of Xbox, like the summer arcade on the Xbox Series. Like people don't talk about that, but before that, nobody was like on the console space. Nobody was talking about indies. Like that was not a thing. I mean, indies existed, yes, but like the normal people, like gamers, nobody was talking about that. That all originated in the summer of arcade, and those games like and Bread and Explosion Man and whatever, Castle Crashers or whatever. That was that year. That was when that exploded, and then Sony kind of pushed that even further. That even like arguably because they really invested in that and they started nurturing studios to do all that and stuff.
You're right. Alan Wake's and the State of Decays came out of that.
Right. I mean, so much like so Xbox really, like, they had a vision at that time, and they were doing. But then, of course, we all know the story. I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah. I mean, then we had the Xbox One, which basically devastated the brand. Like, what was his name? Like like the console for everything. TV, whatever. At EA, when they introduced the console, they were just focusing on making it a multimedia machine, which was always the vision from Bill Gates. We know that, but they just went too hard on that on the Xbox One, and unfortunately, from the consumer perspective, because I think it's healthy to have at least 3 competitors to be successful, like Nintendo and Sony and Xbox. So that's why I always root for all of them. I genuinely do. I love PlayStation because I do think they make some of the best exclusive games on the market, like for single player games and whatever. Like nobody else does the things they do, in my opinion. Nintendo also, like the polish they put into their games and whatever, the craftsmanship is like nobody else does it like they do. And Xbox, they kind of have a little bit of all of that and the technology side. So when you're talking about the handheld and all that, like Microsoft has a lot of experience, not on dedicating gaming handhelds, but they've been doing like their laptops now for years. Their Surface
Right.
laptops, like they had that foldable phone which was a flop, but it was still very cool, which was called the Duo Surface or whatever.
Right.
I'm not sure
No,
of the
that's right.
name.
Yeah.
So they have all that expertise in hardware and both software integration. I personally I use a Surface, actually a laptop Surface, and it's great. It never goes slow on me. It just works fine. So yeah, I think the future for Xbox ultimately, beyond whatever the powerful console will be that they said it would be, but they also said that there would be a big announcement before the end of this year. That's what
They
what's her
said
name?
that.
Yeah, they said exactly,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. So they're just doing it as they go. They don't really have a. So
Right.
that's why I don't take anything at face value that Phil Spencer says. I'm not. I don't dislike the guy. I think he's a genuine
Right.
person
Right.
who
Right.
really
Right.
likes gaming. But at the same time, I kind of feel like he talks too much. Like someone needs to like coach him in terms of PR, because he just like whatever, and he's losing confidence from the user base. But their
No, no,
vision.
no. That's the projection. I'm glad you're saying that. See, this is why this is beautiful tonight, because you're right. That's what I'm saying. You're way over there and you see it. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
matter where you're at.
everybody's.
That's what you just proved my point. And you know what? I've concluded to that too this year. There's so many things that keep changing. And I understand the strategy, and it's just I'm just like this. Just it's better to out here. It's just better to be quiet than to over talk things and then retract, because
Yeah.
we know that in business retracting is common. But like Daniel's saying, but to the customer, it can be presented. Oh, you're lying.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now you're not telling the truth. You see how that could easily be thrown
Yeah.
out there. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's PR, that's public relations. They need to be very careful. On one hand, we want these people, we want these leaders like to be transparent and to speak their minds, and that's also I think why a lot of people like Elon Musk, for example, because either you agree or not, and either he's a troll or not, but you feel like he's saying whatever he wants. It doesn't
Right.
matter if you agree or not, but he's saying whatever he wants, and people appreciate that, and people like that, even if they don't, so that's a good
Right.
thing. But on the other hand, when you're dealing with the brands, you do need to be very careful when setting expectations to your consumer. And again, going back to Elon Musk, he keeps making changes on Twitter and whatever. Some are bad, some are not, and then he goes back on his words, so that ultimately it erodes that trust, and then people will always remember that, and they'll always call that back. But just to go back, I mean, about the future of the Xbox, I think their vision is relatively clear in the sense that when they say everything is an Xbox, right? I think that was always the vision, kind of like to democratize the whole ecosystem. But what will happen is basically we will have Xbox on our laptops. They might release some gaming laptops that actually have the brand Xbox on them. I mean, but they will still just be laptops. They
Right.
probably will have some kind of handheld, which is like I don't know, the Xbox handle or Xbox Game Pass handle, whatever the name it is. But it will basically be like the one you have right there, like the Rogue Ally or Steam
Right.
Deck. I think it will not be that different. It will be essentially that. They will have integration with smart TVs like they're already doing, whatever. And then they will have the dedicated high fidelity machine, which is the actual console, because there is an audience for that. There's always at least like 10, 20, 50 million people who want to have that experience. Like that's me. I don't want to play on clouds, honestly. If I can have a console like processing and rendering and and playing the game like from the console without any lag or anything, that's what I prefer. I don't want to. For me, cloud is like something. It's a last recourse, a last resource. It's a if I don't have anything else working, then I would try on cloud. So they will make that, and I think that's what they mean when they say that they will make the most powerful console. Which again, that they said that a long time ago. So who knows? But if they do, yeah, they might release some console with the Xbox brand that will indeed be very powerful. But at the end of the day, it will not matter because developers will not make games exclusively for that device. They will make games that will run on everything. So we're going back to what we were talking before, that even if that's machine is super powerful, it will be super far more to be future proof than actually to make games that are graphically amazing. That will not be. I don't think that will be the end goal of it. The end goal is to run on everything, on your phone and whatever, either on cloud or really dedicated on those units. So I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, that's the vision from Microsoft. I mean, nothing is too obvious, of course, but I think that's what they're doing. But again, they do have a branding problem, and the Xbox, of course, is very well known in the US. I mean, even Obama was saying Xbox instead of, like, you're playing Xbox, right? Instead of, like, in the old days, people will say, oh, you're playing Nintendo. So it had that cultural moment in the US, but in other markets in Europe, Xbox is like completely. I mean, nobody cares almost in Europe,
Yeah.
except for the UK. UK is like a. Well, I'm allowed to insult them because I'm European and I don't care. But the UK is like a different. They're like kind of separate from us all. But if you go to continental Europe, if you go to France or to Spain or to Portugal, Italy, even Germany, whatever, like the Xbox as a brand has a very, very tiny portion of the market share. Like it's PlayStation land and Nintendo land there. If you go to most big markets in Asia, it's kind of the same thing. In Japan,
Right.
I mean, everybody knows the sales numbers. So my point is, Microsoft really needs to work on the branding and the marketing for Xbox. I do think the name Xbox is recognizable enough that they will not replace it or let it go. But they really need to to tight up their branding, their messaging
I
and
agree.
everything there, because otherwise these other markets outside of the US, they just keep like floating farther and farther away from Xbox as a brand. And there's too many alternatives, like especially if we're talking about cloud. Like, who's to say who's going to dominate cloud, like in stream? Like, again, in China where I am now, like, all these things already exist by Tencent. Like, I
Oh,
was
right.
already. Oh yeah, I was playing like Street Fighter 4 on my TV, on my smart TV here, through streaming. It was not great, but I was playing that like in 2016 or something. And these are all services provided by Tencent and by Baidu, which is this other huge conglomerate in China. So all these things, like these Chinese companies, are really pushing the envelope when it comes to
Yeah.
digital services and stuff, like in a way that most of the rest of the world really has no idea. I think like streaming games, like watching people play and whatever. Like, forget about Twitch. Like people were doing that in China already before Twitch. Like, and it's massive here. That's so. So my point is, who's to say that it's going to be Microsoft to lead that, or not some other company, either a company that already exists, either be Amazon or whoever, or even Nvidia, or it's going to be someone else that just comes up and rises suddenly, because we do have this kind of like paradigm shifts in tech every few years, right? And we have these big brands that kind of come and go, like Nokia or whatever, or of
Right.
course, or even Sega, or whatever. I mean, we do have these historical examples, and suddenly someone else comes along and that kind of becomes, well, PlayStation, right? I mean, PlayStation came along in the mid 90s. People were like, how can they compete against Nintendo and Sega? They can't. Well, but look what happened, right? So, we never know what's going to happen. I guess that's my point. And in gaming in particular, it's very unpredictable, and that's also what makes it exciting, I think. Yeah.
Oh, no, good, no, good stuff, man. I gotta give a shout out to Rachie, man, for the super chat. If Xbox sell 30 million PC, it will become the benchmark. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know what? I can't even. I don't even know what to say about that. I think that either way, whichever direction Microsoft uh, goes with that, they're not going to fail. I don't think that Microsoft is getting rid of the console no time
No.
soon, but it just the way Microsoft, the reason why PC Microsoft doesn't throw all the features over there and do all the little antics that they do when they're doing their console is, like I said, it's too open over there. Your quick resumes, all those things can be done easier on the console. It can be more exclusive to the console because it's more optimized. So the console does have its perks, just like the PC has its perks. I just think that the handheld is going to be a good thing for them. They need to get in there. They have the technology to give a good robust handheld. That ROG Ally is magnificent. What Asus did with Windows 11 is just magnificent. There's a lot of people, Daniel. There's millions of people that don't understand just how great that handheld is.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to be clear, I personally do think it's super exciting. I mean, if they do make a handheld, because that's the reason also why I like my Switch so much, and I always play it on handheld. I like that, and I've been considering buying one of those PC handheld machines for years, and I didn't for whatever reason. Like even the Ieno, it's another brand also from China. They make very good consoles like the ROG Ally. And even the Steam Deck, although I think the Steam Deck now is like super outdated, just technically speaking. So I think they really need to release a new one. But yeah, just to say, I do hope I would be good if Microsoft releases a handheld, and it wouldn't hurt them. And like you said, I don't think they're not going away. That's the thing. Like people sometimes, like the fanboys or whatever, they think that because Microsoft is like going this strategy of everything is the Xbox, like they're losing or they're going away. Like people need to realize, that Microsoft is this huge company. They could buy Sony 3 times over if they wanted to, or if laws allow them to. So Microsoft and Xbox as a brand, they're not going anywhere. Like they're continuing to do. They just might do things differently from the others, from Nintendo and Sony, but they're sticking around and they will continue to release hardware. I mean, that's almost certain. Yeah.
I like what Mike just said right here, Daniel, because a lot of people don't understand. There was a lot of blessings that came out of this FTC thing. A lot of blessings. Content and software was one of those things. If people were paying attention, what this guy Mike is saying right here is the key. I know, like I say, the media here, to me, straight garbage, straight trash, right? But for those people, like you were saying, those people that think, okay, let's put it like this. When it comes to console sales, it's easy to think that because Microsoft is in third place in console sales, that they're not making the money, like they're not making a hefty amount of money. I don't want to say more yet because I know they are now, but it took them a while. The key element to this was Game Pass and the ABK deal, like Danny was talking about earlier. But once those things happened, it catapulted Xbox because it gave them, everybody should know this, in video game land, content and software is king. The more content you have, the more people you can engage with. That's just what it is. So when Microsoft bought ABK, they became the content kings now. They got more content than Nintendo and Sony. These are just facts. But you don't hear it because it's like Danny was saying, it's not clickbait material. It's easy to kick on Xbox because you need to talk about console sales to keep your lights on. We get it, okay? We've seen it over the years. You're beating it over with a dead horse. We get it. But if you're one of these people that really dig down and try to find information, you'll be shocked to understand that Microsoft right now is number one in that. So the FTC came out, and I have it on my mobile phone, where here's PlayStation. Daniel's right. They are the top brand in the world. Top most recognized gaming brand in the world. PlayStation is. But if you look at the media, the game media every single day, just every single day, there's 2 things that you would think, man, Xbox don't sell. Damn, man, they just don't sell nothing over there. They're gonna die. Xbox is dead, And you would think that Sony's just making all the money. If that's all you're seeing, that's a perception that's being thrown out there. But lo and behold, that FTC, those documents, and it was just like a bomb just blew up, just dropped on everything. And it made, you only have two options now, Daniel. You can either, because you can't be ignorant no more because they showed you. So now you can either play stupid or recognize what's really going on, right? If you want to be stupid, you'll say, well, Sony's making more money than everybody, and Sony's doing the best. If you want to recognize truth, Sony is not making money than everybody. Sony's not doing the best. They're actually making the least profit. But all you hear in the industry is the revenue. Of course, they're going to tell you revenue because Sony's number one in revenue. But just like I said, in elementary terms, revenue just means what you put out there. So Sony clouds you with a lot of stuff in the stores. You go in the stores, all you look around, all you see is Sony. Perception. But then here you go. But the next day you go in that store, you keep seeing the same things on the shelf. You don't see nothing moving out. You keep seeing, that's Sony. Perception is there. There's going to be some sales that move out, but for the most part, things stay on the shelf. You got Nintendo that barely puts revenue out, but it flies off the shelf. You're like, man, are there any Switches? Are anybody buying this? Yeah, they're buying it. You don't see it because as soon as it hits, it's out the store. Nintendo doesn't have to cloud nothing up, so they're last in revenue. But Nintendo is first in profit. That's incredible when you think about that. So you give credit to Nintendo, they found out a way to not overhaul the stores, but at the same time, they know how to get stuff out the store. Now here's Microsoft. They're in the middle. Microsoft is second in everything. They're second in the profit. They're second in revenue. So it's kind of like what Daniel said. When you think about Microsoft, Microsoft is always about a company of balance. So when I saw that, it just made sense to me. I kind of laughed. I said, yeah, Microsoft isn't going to be imbalanced. They're not going to be first in profit, last in, they're a company of balance. So it made sense to me that they sit in the middle. But the fact that they sit in the middle was astounding because when you read these articles here, all you'll think is that Microsoft is just terrible. There's nothing that they're doing that's right, but that's far from the truth. It's all these companies have strong points about them, right? But all these companies are being challenged now because now the industry is not healthy. These keeping exclusives on platforms are no longer working, Daniel. Blocking games off of platforms, it's not working anymore, Daniel. Coming out here paying devs to keep their games on your platform, it's not working anymore, Daniel. People are seeing that, listen, it's not guaranteeing victory. You brought up Square Enix. Daniel, that was perfect because Square Enix was the last one to hang on to this. And look what happened this year. They said, listen, no more. Okay, we don't want your money no more, Sony. Because Final Fantasy 7 flopped. The other one flopped, 16. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth and 16 didn't do what they wanted it. Didn't hit expectations. 2 games in 1 year. Didn't they have the online did good? The online did good.
14.
They had another game that didn't do good either. I think it was like 3. There was another game that I didn't even know it was. They made the game. It didn't do well. And that was like the straw, man. It was like, look, we have a reputation. We know we're Japanese. We know we want to take care of each other. But like Daniel said, but at the end of the day, these are businesses. And Square Enix finally saw the light that we do better when our games are on the most platforms that can be possible for gamers to play our games. we do better that way. Now, that's it. There's no more studios playing into that game anymore. Square Enix was the last one. Think about that. We were in 2024. Square Enix is the last one to do it. So now, most likely now, third-party games are going to be third-party games. They're going to go out and the devs have a better chance of thriving. Technology's coming out. We don't know what the Switch 2. Nintendo, rumor has it that the new Switch 2 is going to have backwards compatibility. If so, great job, Nintendo, because that's exactly what you've been missing. The possibilities of the industry finally taking a step back, right, Daniel? Realizing that, listen, the gamers aren't just going to buy anything. Look at Super Mario Brothers, for example. The new Super Mario Brothers, look what happened. Few million, that's it. You can't just throw anything out here and just think that people are just going to buy just because it says Super Mario Brothers on it. And we're talking about Nintendo. Super Mario Brothers sells 10, 11, 13 million copies.
Yeah.
For that game to only sell 1 or 2 million, I was like, wow. There's a shift happening, Daniel. But I think it's for the good. I think Tencent rallying the industry is good. I'm with you. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, looking to see what's best interest of the gamers is good. Gamers not accepting everything is good. The media needs to be reflective of the culture more. And if we could start putting those elements together and really being honest about it, have some integrity about gaming, then I think we'll start to see a good turnaround. We'll see some things to where people aren't afraid to be daring, risky again. Where's our Castlevanias at, Daniel? You know, where are those games at? What was it last year? At the Game Awards or whatever it was. Who took the spotlight away? Sega did. You know why?
Yeah.
Because they showed us the Taxi. They showed us Shinobi. They showed us Golden Axe and Streets. They stole it.
That was the best.
Right. Because why, Daniel? The nostalgia. We're lacking nostalgia games. Where are they? Who said these games won't sell? I don't get it. Like we don't have we didn't grow up like this. We grew up, nostalgia games happen. We liked our new games, but we have respect for those nostalgia games. I like what Konami's doing with Metal Gear. It's Metal Gear, but it needs to happen. Every generation deserves these games.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't know about Metal Gear. Every generation deserves them. These are great games. So yeah, Daniel, that's my rant. Like you would say, that's my rant. but Daniel, listen, I appreciate you stopping by, man.
Thank you.
Taking the time to reach back and we talk and we did this. You guys, we did this in 2 days. For everybody that wanted to know. Look, Me and Daniel just met. We just met. Daniel threw up his time zone. He was traveling.
Yeah.
This guy was awesome. He was traveling. He got home. He went straight to bed. He hit me up, let me know he was going straight to bed. He figured out our time zones. I told him I was Central America. Figured out the time zones. He said, hey, listen, Saturday, it'll be your 11 a.m.? Or
my Sunday 11 a.m. Yeah.
It'll be your 9 p.m. I said, hey, man, let's go. Let's do it. We can make that happen. And so here we are, guys. This guy was right on the dot. We did our 30-minute test. We did our 30-minute early talk, make sure everything was going on. I really appreciate you, man. And I hope this ain't the last time we see you grace Di-RRec Gaming, man. At any time that you want to talk about gaming and you see something, man, always get in touch with me, man. We'll be honored to have you back on here, man, at any time, bro.
No, please. And let me just say, no, thank you really for reaching out. Because to be honest with you, I don't get much invites for podcasts or whatever to talk about gaming, and I can do this literally all day. Like I wouldn't, I really wouldn't mind sit here for 7 hours and just talk about gaming. I would not get bored, and there would be no lack of things to say and to talk about. So
My kind of
so
people, man.
yeah, so and but that's again going back, not to prolong this too much, but that's what I feel it's missing again on the media. I don't feel like a lot of these media, not all, again a lot of
Right.
great people, but a lot of them, I don't feel like they're passionate about it. Like it's like they're doing the work because they have to, or I don't know. You don't feel that passion, and you used to feel it before. Like people were writing on gaming websites or gaming magazines before. You could feel that they were like so hyped, so happy to be able to just be writing about gaming.
You're right.
And now you see so much toxicity and so much negativity. And
Yep.
I don't mean from the gamers, I mean from the people who are
Right.
writing about gaming, because they are always accusing the gamers of being toxic, but I think it goes both ways. They feed off from each other, like, and they literally profit from it, because that's where the traffic comes from. So and that's what we've been seeing with Kotaku, which used to be a great website like years ago. When Kotaku used to be that website. I'm sorry, I'm going
Kotaku
on a
was the
rant
one
again.
that talked about Sony leaving Japan when nobody else talked about them.
Yeah, they were the one.
2011, I'll never forget that article.
Yeah, they had so
Mind
many.
blown.
Yeah, they had good writers. They were
Yeah,
always writing those
yeah,
alternative, giving us alternative perspectives from Japan, from Korea, even from
they
China,
did.
whatever.
They
And
did.
then suddenly they became that thing, that dark clouds, that's just like, oh, you like that game? You're a
Yep.
Nazi. You need
That
to
was
go to
crazy.
you need
Yeah.
to be shot in the alley for liking that. Like what? And then
Yep.
there was this kind of contagious, that other outlets kind of started to feed on that. Because they figure out, oh, that's good traffic. Like people, even though people don't
Right.
like that content, but they will click on it, they will engage with it, and then we can ask for advertisers for more money for their ads on our website. So they all started to kind of doing that, and that was so disingenuous and this intellectually dishonest. But thankfully now I think we're seeing a shift on that. Finally, engagement has dropped drastically, and that's why they all turned to doing guides and whatever. And I mean, that's another big topic. But I'm happy that things are turning around again, and we're kind of like celebrating game again. And people who love gaming are speaking out more. And I think more positive things are ahead of us than negative, and that's a good thing. I'm excited. And but again, thank you so much for having me. Really, I really appreciate it. And if anything, just DM me or message me anytime. I'm not the most communicative person, just spontaneously. But if anything, just reach out to me, and I'm always available. Yeah.
Good to know, Daniel, man. I appreciate you. And I want to say thanks to everybody that came out for this interview tonight, man. Shout out to the realists for popping up, man. Well, it's okay. I know firsthand how connections can be involved. So no worries, man, on that end. But for the most part, thanks to everybody that came out, man. This was a very special interview for me because I saw what you were saying, man, and it was just I needed to reach out to you and see if I could get this done because I believe in everything that you were saying. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of boldness to come out and be honest to the gamers about what you say, no matter what it is. You can see it, you can see it, you can sense it. And so that's what I got from you. And now you grace Di-RRec Gaming, man. You're forever a part of our family, man. So Daniel, yeah, I'll be hitting you up soon when something else cracks open. We would love to bring you back in here and
Sure.
any kind of news from your side of the field. We would love to come in and ask you some questions and get some get some opinions and the way you feel about things on the certain topics at hand. But now, for the most part, man, don't work too hard, man. Be safe out there, man. And thank you once
Thank
again
you,
for coming on Di-RRec Gaming, man. This
thank you, thank you.
new legal represent Di-RRec Gaming to everybody that came out. If you like what we're about, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, never miss a beat. Leave a comment below, man. Hit the like button, share this video, man. And shout out one more time to my man Daniel Camilo, representing the Eastern market of China, man, and a great analyst of the wonderful company named Tencent. Thanks again, brother. God bless you, man. And everybody, have a good night and a good day. We're out of here. Peace.